CBS
I'm just talking down to
I think
Dan.
the economy is one of the most important reasons to vote for Kamala Harris.
2.5 minutes.
If they follow through on their plans and Trump puts in this tariff, that would mean about $4,000 costs. That's the last thing.
Tommy, is my voice being heard here in the... Enjoy your conversations, mingle. Don't feel like you need to be silent because I'm here just, in the background. So do your thing. If you want to listen, listen. If you want to participate, we'll have an opportunity for you to do that as well. So TC will work the crowd at a certain point after I get some things off my chest. But mostly, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. It's nice. It's fun, right? Where else? Everybody I hope has voted or you will be voting, and there's nowhere I would rather be than here. When you go home, you'll watch a YouTube tape that I actually did live, walking from the county to the courthouse and then down to the Bagel Barrel. I told a whole bunch of stories. Some of them are true.
You just love that line, don't you?
1 minute. 1 minute.
1 minute, says Dan.
The video was great. I watched it.
Oh, you did? Oh, good. Yeah, the dog was friendly. Two.
30.
PJ and Daniel over there doing it live.
10 seconds. Stand by.
Good.
It's Election Day on POTUS, Sirius XM Channel 124. Welcome to a special edition of the Michael Smerconish program.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Live from the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Here's Michael Smerconish.
Wow. I love the way that sounds. The Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Greetings, everybody. How close is it? They opened the polls in Dixville Notch, New Hampshire, as per the tradition at midnight. Have you heard this yet? And the vote was 3-3. Holy smokes, 3-3. What can we compare that to? We can compare that to the fact that Dixville Notch voters have supported the Democratic nominee in the last two presidential elections, with the township in 2020 unanimously casting 5 votes for President Joe Biden, and with Hillary Clinton in 2016 winning 4 of 7 votes. 2 went to Trump and 1 went to Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson in January. I thought this was actually even more interesting. In January, 4 registered Republican voters and 2 independents participated in the GOP primary. They cast 6 unanimous votes for former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. So Nikki Haley captured everything in Dixville Notch in the primary, and now it's a 3-3 tie. Okay, you know what I'm going to say. Welcome to the most important town in the most important county, in the most important state in this election. That is Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Home, by the way, we have to educate a national audience now. Home, by the way, to author James Michener, to anthropologist Margaret Mead, to, this is my favorite, W. Atlee Burpee of Seed fame, right? Superstar Pink. My mother always tells me the Morton Salt Girl. I'm not sure what that means, Morton Salt. Can you picture? Okay, you can picture. And the guy, shame on me for not remembering this, but the guy who invented the game Monopoly. And all of us. All of us as well. And I should mention as well Tim Stack, who's my friend and is the Hollywood actor and producer and funny guy. So I'm at the Bagel Barrel. The bagels and coffee of the Bagel Barrel are fabulous. Thank when I conceived of the idea that I really wanted to be in the epicenter of this election, and it felt like that should be here. Evidenced by the fact that when I did my read-in very early this morning, the lead story at the Associated Press was Harris and Trump set sights on Pennsylvania in the final push. And why would they do so? I want to make the case as to the importance of this particular area. So let me start from a macro sense. You know that there are 7 battleground states. Pennsylvania has the largest share of any in our 19 electoral votes. I think that we're also an interesting mixture because when you think about the Commonwealth, we've got this urban area in Philadelphia, smaller but an urban area in the west in Pittsburgh, each with a large African-American population, and then surrounded in each instance by suburbs that are largely white, higher income and education, areas where Republicans have lost ground. Right? We have a growing Latino population in the state. You think of the Lehigh Valley in particular, in the northeastern part of the state as well. And then we've got this large rural swath, the T of Pennsylvania, from the southern part of the state up to the north and then across that whole northern boundary. The area that James Carville once said was the Alabama in between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. We've got a state, the only state in the nation right now, I think I'm accurate in this, where Democrats control one chamber of the legislature and Republicans control the other. We have a well-known and popular governor in Josh Shapiro. We've got a hot Senate race. We've got at least 2 competitive congressional elections. When Donald Trump won the state in 2016, there were 900,000 more Democrats in Pennsylvania than Republicans. 2016, a 900,000 vote edge. That number's now, round numbers, about 300,000. Still an edge for Democrats, but much less than it was. Keep that in mind as the day plays out and as the evening plays out. Bucks County, where I'm seated, one of the 4 collar suburban counties, the others being Montgomery, Chester, and Delco. I went back just to confirm my memory and make sure that it was accurate because I cut my teeth politically here in 1980. This crowd will get a kick out of the fact that somewhere in this room is my lifelong buddy, Mike Stockel Jr. By the way, Mike, if you're still here, wave at me. And the two of us in 1980, I'm, I think, 2 years older than Mike is, but in 1980, in the spring, when I was a senior at CB West, and Mike would have been 2 years my junior, I think he would have been at East. But we skipped school, and we went to the train station here, and we took the Reading train into Philadelphia before the convention center. Oh boy, if I get off on my tangents, I'm never going to get back to. But I got to finish this story. So we rode the train into the shed, right? The Reading train shed, which now is the roof of the convention center. And we then jumped on a trolley, and we went down to the Italian market, and we were there because I had been tipped off, this was the spring of 1980, that at a particular time, in a particular location, Ronald Reagan was going to walk into Esposito's meat market. And he did, and these two punks from Doylestown were there to meet him and swapped a pocket Instamatic camera, and each had our picture taken with the future president. That's part A. Part B is I came home, told my parents I was so excited and that I had decided to cast my first ever presidential ballot for Ronald Reagan. And then I was tipped off that George Herbert Walker Bush was coming to the shrine at Chenstohova. And I hustled up to the shrine at Chenstohova, and you know the stairs at the shrine? Okay, a lot of nods. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, and here he came, the future vice president of the United States, and he spent 2 or 3 minutes with me, and I was just so elated with the conversation. Now I went home and I told my parents, I have a real problem. I don't know, because I had just met both of them, and they were competitive in that election. Anyway, I wanted to test my memory because my recollection was that in 1980 and 84 and 88, you'd look at a map of Pennsylvania when all the votes were counted, and of course Philadelphia, with an enormous Democratic registration edge, was going to vote Democratic. But my recollection was that Bucks and Chester and Montco and Delco were all solidly Republican. And they were. I looked at the data. In the 1980 election, Reagan received 100,000 round number votes to Jimmy Carter's 60,000. And that played itself out in each of the suburban counties. And so I looked at the map for 80, and I looked at the changed in the Clinton years. It was the 92 cycle when all of a sudden the Philly burbs were now in play. And they've become increasingly blue and Democratic. They still maintain more of a purple characteristic than the rest of the Commonwealth. But that's the answer as to why does all the attention get heaped on this community? And then the question becomes, why so much attention on Bucks County in particular? You know, of all the McDonald's in the Philly burbs or all the McDonald's in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, why was it the one in Feasterville and Trevose? By the way, I have another story. I'll tell you about that McDonald's if I get time. I worked at the McDonald's on South Main Street, you know, here in Doylestown. But it's all very deliberate, and the reason is because if you take a look at the relationship between the Bucks County vote and the Pennsylvania vote, what you see is that in 2016, Trump lost Bucks County by a very small margin to Hillary Clinton en route to winning Pennsylvania and winning the nation. Now fast forward 20 years, a margin that was not close, Joe Biden defeats Donald Trump handily en route to winning Pennsylvania and winning the nation. And in a nutshell, that's why, you know, this area is so important, because if you could forecast what happens in Bucks generally, you'll have an insight into Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania will then give you an insight into the nation. I've had a number of national reporters call me in the last couple of months and say, you know, give me the short version of what I need to know about Bucks County. And in a macro sense, I think the way that I describe it still holds true and has for all these years, which is that the lower end of the county, much more dense, historically much more Democratic. And as you sort of move north in this rectangular shape, you've got the area where we are right now, which is more in play, more purple, more independent, and then the more rural area of Upper Bucks, and you can tell this by the yard signs even, tends to be more conservative. If you're on the river, you know, it's more like Central Bucks. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who told me that last weekend they drove from Yardley, Newtown to New Hope, and they reported on the signs. And I said, that's interesting, because I drove from New Hope to Irwina, and I reported on the signs. But then when I went '70s, Peter Kosmeyer. Right, Peter Kosmeyer, who was a very progressive Democrat, represented Bucks County, and then in the, I think it was 80 election on Reagan's coattails, Jim Coyne defeated him. Then Kosmeyer came back, and Kosmeyer was successful in defeating Coyne, and then eventually it was Jim Greenwood, Patrick Murphy, who'll be here in a bit, and then the Fitzpatrick brothers. So yeah, I mean, the independence of the area is borne out in the data, and that's why there's really not a better way to begin this election day than to be here. Barack Obama won the county by less than 4,000 votes, about 1%, and won the state. Trump, as I said, lost it twice, but by different margins. He held down the Bucks margin in 2016 en route to winning the state and the nation. Then he lost it large in 2020 as he went on to lose both the state and the nation. Hillary won Bucks County by less than 2,700 votes and then lost the state. Trump won the state by 44,000 in 2016. 2020, Biden wins by 80,000 statewide after winning Bucks by 17,345. David Wasserman at the Cook Political Report, for whom I have immense respect, wrote this recently. He said, "It wasn't coincidental that Trump chose a McDonald's in Feasterville, Trevose, Lower Bucks to sling fries on October 20. Harris needs a strong margin out of Metro Philadelphia, but Trump's best opportunity to make progress in the Philly burbs is likely in Bucks, where non-college educated whites, his constituency, make up about 50% of the electorate, much higher than any other Philadelphia collar county." And then he goes on to repeat the data that I've already shared with you. And David Wasserman said, if Trump carries Bucks for the first time in his 3 runs, it suggests that Harris was likely unable to match Biden's showing among white working class voters. But like other large counties in the state, it could take at least several days before the full results are known. I walked up to the courthouse this morning and I saw that the blinking sign says that Main Street is going to be closed from 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. And as you all well know, it's so that those ballots can be dropped off and the counting can take place. The real reason that we won't, in all likelihood, know the outcome of Bucks tonight is because they don't allow in Pennsylvania the pre-canvassing of our ballots until 7 a.m. this morning, so 2 hours and 20 minutes ago. I voted 10 days ago. My ballot, sat somewhere in storage until they could finally touch it this morning. I wish that weren't the case, because there's just frankly no reason why electronically we shouldn't know very soon after, the way Georgia is going to know tonight. So that's why we're here. That's the short version of why we're here in terms of...
Not so short.
Okay. All right.
It's
a
like
very tough crowd.
Like the lightning round.
Doylestown. It's a very tough crowd. Well, I had to summarize it for a national audience. It's not just the bagel barrel that we're reaching here, okay? I wanted all of them to know.
It feels that way, which is really nice.
I didn't want it to appear too self-indulgent to a nationwide audience that I had come to the bagel barrel in Doylestown on Election Day of 2024, but you're all very funny to say that. I am asked both on air and I am asked by those in my social or family orbit, so how do you see it? And what I say publicly is what I say privately, which is I have no idea. I know all of the data. It's not from lack of understanding and awareness. I pay attention to all of the polls. The only thing that has changed since I was on air yesterday is that Marist and NPR and PBS came out with their final poll showing Kamala Harris up 4 nationally. And I put that into the metric of Biden won 4 nationally and won the election. Hillary Clinton won by 2 nationally, and it wasn't enough as a tell for what was going on in the battleground states. So by one way of looking at it, you can say that she's now on par with Biden. That's just one survey of many. The Real Clear Politics average presents a different picture of everything being in the margin of error. I look at the betting markets; they've shifted toward. The stock market has been robust. That tends to bode well for the party that is the incumbent party. I pay attention to the right track, wrong track numbers, which are abysmal. Nearly 3/4 of Americans say that the country is seriously on the wrong track. Typically, that would be a very bad sign for whomever is the incumbent party. But in this case, she's the vice president, she's not the president. And some people who are answering that question of, and you can just answer this to yourselves, actually. If I were to say to you, do you think that the country is seriously on the wrong track? Think about what your answer would be. 3/4 of the country answer that affirmatively, but that's not a total repudiation of Biden and Harris, because half of her voters answer that question affirmatively. Half of her voters say, I think we're seriously on the wrong track. So they're not talking about her, right? Some of them are talking about a Trump MAGA influence. 98% of his audience says wrong track. They are talking about Biden, they are talking about Harris, and they are talking about the economy, among other things. Two final notes. and then we'll pay some bills. Final note number one, I pay attention to the two Nates, Nate Cohn and Nate Silver. Nate Silver, who used to be at 538 and runs these election models, and this morning I took a look, and he said that he had run 40,000 different models, and in the end gave Kamala Harris a 50.015 likelihood, for what it's worth. Nate Cohn at the New York Times, what I like that he does, and this is a nice way to sort of button down this opening, is that not only does he give you the latest polling data, no surprise, all margin of error kind of stuff, Pennsylvania dead even, but he also says if the polls are wrong in this cycle the way they were wrong in 2020, what does it mean? If they're wrong in the same way that they were in 2020, then it means that Trump is in a very strong position. Now, I say that, and then I hear people who will say, well, his vote is properly reflected this time. It's actually Harris's vote, which is underreported, and she's going to be the one to have a surprise. I believed that he was in a very secure position post-assassination at the time of the Republican National Convention, and then he lost momentum to her, seemed to get it back, and then if I had to say where did I think it shifted, I thought it shifted more toward her than him. He closed in a very dark way. And I've had any number of conversations with very bright guests who pay attention to this, who tell me that there's a method to his madness, that he's trying to reach the 80 million who were eligible 4 years ago and didn't get off the couch to vote, and that it's through the fear that he tries to motivate them to come out. I looked yesterday at the Wall Street Journal, and I saw that Nikki Haley had written an endorsement piece for Donald Trump, and to me, it's political malpractice for him to have not invited her out on the campaign trail. I don't get it. Would he rather lose hard-headed, than win by being compromising to her? So those are among my thoughts. Okay, I take the hint. I guess I've gone on too long. I want to say to our national audience, call the program as you always do. Right now, you heard my summation. I'm at 855-486-1776. If you're here in Doylestown and you have a comment, you know TC, by the way, best producer. So TC has a handheld mic, and if you want to get in a quick comment, you'll have the opportunity to do that as well. So thank you for being at the Bagel Barrel. If you're planning a trip, you expect the trip is going to be the easy part, way more fun than the planning part. It can be a lot of work, so let Gate 1 Travel do it for you. For over 40 years, Gate 1 has planned amazing escorted tours, river cruises, vacation packages that come with everything from airfare and hotels to meals, transportation, and transfers. Let Gate 1's local expert guides take you on a once-in-a-lifetime experience throughout the various countries across 7 continents. Discover Europe, Africa, Asia, the Americas with Gate 1. They've got hundreds of packages to choose from, so that you can travel with comfort and ease, quality, affordable travel, one click away. So take that tour, sail that cruise, and save the work for Gate 1. Right now, save 20% off all escorted group tours and river cruises with code WORLD20 at gate1travel.com. WORLD20 at gate1travel.com for 20% off. The offer expires November 22nd, 2024. Travel your way with Gate 1 Travel. See more of the world for less.
Most important.
Here we go.
In the most important state of the 2024 election. You're listening to the Michael Smerconish program, live at the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, on SiriusXM's POTUS, channel 124.
Okay, Dan, we are rocking and rolling at the Bagel Barrel, so I need to rely on you. Tell me who you want to take first.
Sure, we'll hop up to New England and talk to Jeff in Massachusetts.
Hey, Jeff, how are you? What did you most want to say on Election Day 2024?
Hi, thanks so much for taking my call. So just to follow up on the thought about what you mentioned about Nikki Haley and why Donald Trump did not want to bring her out on the campaign, it made me think that, it's like another signal maybe to the world that he knows what he wants. He's a strong leader, and if that's the way he's going to win it, that's the way he's going to win it. I think it ties in maybe to national security too.
Right.
Again, that signal to the world that it's a strong leader. Curious about your thoughts.
So every time I try to be a political scientist or to be a political operative, and I simply analyze what does she do and what should she do, what does he do and what should he do, people misinterpret and they think that I'm carrying water for one or the other. I'm not. I'm simply standing back from the sideline and saying, if I'm Donald Trump and Nikki Haley is willing to campaign for me, and I am losing so badly among suburban women in counties like the county in which I'm seated right now, it's political malpractice not to have gone out on the campaign trail with Nikki Haley. And I just don't understand. It's completely perplexing to me, and I hope someday, somebody like Mark Halpern writes a book and we get to know the backstory. It'll be interesting whether it's tomorrow or the next day or next week when we do the post-mortem on one of these candidates, the way in which they ran their campaign. Because I know the first thing I'm going to say if she loses. The first thing I'm going to say if she loses is, of course, she should have taken Josh Shapiro. And especially if she loses Pennsylvania, like why wouldn't she have taken Josh? And if she wins Pennsylvania, maybe I'll be saying, wow, that was so brilliant to take Tim Walz. Who the hell knows? I don't know. But with regard to Trump, I know what I'll say. His hard-headedness and stubbornness got in the way. When people were like begging, please, I don't want to vote you. I'm willing to, though. Just give me a reason. And he couldn't close that deal. TC, who do you have?
All right, Michael, this is Leo, and he's 10 years old, and he's from Connecticut.
How many times did you vote, Leo?
0.
Good. This is Bucks County. We don't allow that, so that's a good thing. All right, what did you want to say?
My question is, do you think if this is the closest election ever, and if so, then how?
Leo, right?
Yes.
All the data says it's the closest election ever. And I've been paying attention since 1980, long time, and I've never seen an election on its eve, or on its election day, which appeared so close. But I will not be surprised if tomorrow it's not so close. It's not so close. And all of these pollsters seem to have hedged their bets. And they say, well, for example, I talked about someone named Nate Silver, whose analysis I pay close attention to, who says it's an absolute coin toss. And yet, he said a week ago, there's a 60% likelihood that somebody's going to run the table of all of the swing states. Well, how can it be both? How can it be a coin toss and yet perhaps someone's going to win 7 of 7 or 6 or 7 of those swing states? So we really don't know, which makes it exciting and means everybody needs to get out and vote because your vote really may matter in this election. I'll tell you a funny thing.
Great question.
I have a buddy, his name is Rob Gunlock. I'll give him a shout out. And immediately after college, he ran for borough council right here in Doylestown Borough. And the race was I hope I'm telling this accurately. I think that I am. The race was a stone cold tie settled by a coin toss. Right? Yeah, amazing, isn't it? And he lost the toss. He lost the toss. So, yeah. Anyway, okay, back to the Bagel Barrel in just a moment. Did you know that your dog's food could be harming them? Dr. Marty says there's one major red flag to look out for. Cooked dog food like kibble or canned food. When dog food is cooked at high temperatures, the amino acids often overheat and can create dangerous compounds called AGEs, or advanced glycation end products. AGEs can cause dangerous buildup in your dog's system and make them act slower or older than they are. High amounts may even be connected to cancer. It's tricky because even healthy and organic dog food is often cooked at high temperatures so that it's really hard to avoid, and that's why Dr. Marty created his own formula called Nature's Blend. It's freeze-dried raw, so that you don't need to worry about potential AGEs from kibble. Shelf-stable, and it's mess-free. Lots of nutrients, and it tastes absolutely delicious for dogs. Ours, Core, and Potts love the taste, and we love saving up to 54% off Nature's Blend. Do it. Receive a free bag of Cod Krispies. They're wild-caught cod skin treats. Go to drmartypets.com/Michael or text Michael to 511-511. Text my first name, Michael, to 511-511. All dogs are unique. Your dog's results can and will vary. Text fees may apply.
It's Election Day on POTUS. Day on POTUS. Welcome back to the Michael Smerconish program on Sirius XM Channel 124.
Well, I love saying these words. Welcome back to Doylestown, Pennsylvania, Bucks County, PA. Robert Costa is the chief election and campaign correspondent for CBS News. He covers national politics and American democracy. He is a graduate of Notre Dame. He is a graduate of Cambridge, but most significantly, he is a graduate of the Pennsbury High School. This is Robert Costa. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Michael, great to be with you.
Help me explain to a national audience the significance of Bucks County, PA, politically speaking.
Because, Michael, like you, I'm one of the rare people who's been a political junkie in Bucks County for decades. I've watched up close what it takes to win in this swing area and to understand the dynamics of lower Bucks versus upper Bucks and how the traditional Republicans that elected Jim Greenwood back in 1992 to the U.S. House, that kind of country club Republican from Upper Bucks County, has now morphed into the Jim Worthington of Newtown, Pennsylvania, who owns the Newtown Athletic Club and is a close ally of former President Donald Trump. And why did J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate, finish in Bucks County and Newtown? Worthington's place was the site. We're seeing Republicans of Bucks County transform away from the kind of tradition, yet Brian Fitzpatrick's still the congressman. So all these dynamics make it really a toss-up about where this is going to go. Is this a Nikki Haley voter that's going to go to Kamala Harris, or is this a Trump county through and through? And it's unbelievable how you really can't predict Bucks County.
So I dated myself earlier by saying much of what you've just said, except I went back further and reminisced about how when I was coming of age here and politically, it was Peter Kostmeyer who represented what was then the 8th Congressional District, and then on Ronald Reagan's coattails in the 1980 election, it was Congressman Jim Coyne who upset him, and then who defeated Kostmeyer, when he came back again, pre-Greenwood era. And of course, Patrick Murphy is then a part of the mix. You'll find this interesting as I'm broadcasting live from Doylestown. Patrick Murphy is going to join me in a couple of minutes, and after that, Jim Worthington will be here. So I feel, Bob, like I've got it all represented at the Bagel Barrel of Doylestown today.
Michael, you got to keep an eye on Patrick Murphy because he's close friends with Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's running mate. They served in the House together, 2 military veterans. I wouldn't be surprised that if Vice President Harris wins, you could see the former Undersecretary of the Army, Patrick Murphy, former Bucks County congressman, end up in the administration in some capacity. But I'll raise you a little point of Bucks County history. Pete Beester was a Republican who represented Bucks County in the 60s and early 70s, as you know. And then in 1976, after Milton Schaaf runs for president, Peter Kostmeyer, this Democrat, wins along with Carter in 1976. And what I'm really watching is this a 1976 moment in Bucks County? Can that post-Watergate era reflect kind of the same movement inside of the Democratic Party to move on from Trump-style politics? And if so, Bucks County has been shown in its history to give a new wave of leadership a fair hearing. They gave Kostmeyer just that in 1976 and brought him back in 1982. And I think Bucks County is always open to that, including Obama and others like it. The question is, can she really bring together that Liz Cheney voter, that Nikki Haley voter who does live in Lower Makefield, in Yardley, and other places?
Okay, so now a special treat for everybody here in Doylestown and listening nationwide, because Robert Costa, whose voice you're hearing right now, the chief election and campaign correspondent for CBS News, is one of my favorite people. He's one of my favorite guests. Another of my favorite individuals is Bob Costas, right? Robert Costa, Bob Costas. Bob Costas, who has just retired as a Major League Baseball play-by-play caller after a stellar career of decades. He confirmed the news. He is saying that his last game broadcast was the Yankees Game 4 clincher in the American League Division Series. And TC can attest to the fact that if I'm asking for one or the other, she always has to say to me, now, do you mean Robert Costa or do you mean Bob Costas? And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if mingling on Election Day, we had Robert Costa and we had Bob Costas. This is Bob Costas, who had a 44-year career as a Major League broadcaster, among other things. Bob Costas, welcome to Bucks County, Pennsylvania on Election Day, and say hello to Robert Costa.
Well, Mr. Costa and I have crossed paths on occasion, and we commiserate about the ongoing confusion. And since I preceded him as a public figure by a few years, maybe more than a few, refresh my memory, Robert, but you used to have either a Twitter handle or something where you tried to differentiate yourself from me, which a lot of people try to do, even if their name doesn't sound like mine. So,
as Bob Costas knows, and it's an honor to even be tangentially associated with someone whose name is so revered, but I have spent my life and career for 20 years, maybe not when I got to know Smerconish 20 years ago, but 20 years saying to me, people come up to me, Bob, and go, so your father got you this job, right?
Yeah, I did, on the condition that you would drop the S.
Hey, Bob Costas.
Yeah.
We're keeping it all nonpartisan and clean in Bucks County today. I know that you are a close political observer, maybe as much as Costa. The stakes are high. I just want to say from the ground, it's nice to see so much enthusiasm and what do I want to say, community spirit in the location where I am, which is the community in which I was born and raised, and which will be the focal point perhaps tonight when it comes down to the wire.
Yeah, I guess an interesting statistic, and maybe you have some insight into this, would be if this is a record, or turns out to be a record, not only of raw turnout, because obviously the population grows, but of percentage of eligible voters who actually go to the polls in this election.
I'm gonna lean on Robert Costa for a reaction to that.
Yeah, you're seeing right now, I think in both campaigns, a real variable with turnout. I mean, I talk to the Trump people, and they say, look, we win if our movement comes out, but if there's a surge of women voting on Roe, we lose. And it's as simple as that based on how they're seeing it.
Robert Costa, would you be surprised if in the end we knew the winner tonight and it were not as close as all the data suggests?
I think that's very possible. I think if you look at a lot of the polls, there's a lot of hesitation among some pollsters to lean into a changing electorate. But we saw in 2022, let's not forget, in 2022, so many people were there on election night predicting a so-called red wave, and then all of these women and men who support abortion rights, low propensity voters, they call them, people who rarely participate, came out because it was the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I can't escape the fact as a reporter that this is the first presidential election since Roe v. Wade was overturned, and that really could change how the electorate looks. Even if Trump has his numbers where he needs to, if the Democrats are drawing new voters that they're not counting on, she wins.
Bob Costas, what do you most want to see tonight?
Well, I think we'd like to see, if not tonight, sometime soon after, a clear-cut victory for one side or another. You can infer which side I'd be rooting for. But a clear-cut enough winner, in the case of it being Harris, that Trump's inevitable claims of the thing being fixed and rigged resonate less with reasonable people who embrace facts.
Last time it wasn't until the Saturday thereafter. I remember where I was when Wolf Blitzer made the call on CNN. My gut tells me that it might not be as protracted as people might think. Hey, to the two of you, Robert Costa and Bob Costas, have you made one another's acquaintance in person? And if not, can I be the catalyst for lunch or dinner to make that happen?
Well, I'd love to join the two of you for lunch.
We'll join you anytime.
So
but I've been lucky enough to meet Mr. Costas and his lovely wife.
In fact, the first time was in a gathering in D.C. I didn't know anybody there except maybe one person. This is maybe 10, 12 years ago. And then we crossed paths less than a year ago, last December, at the Kennedy Center honors. So, yes, we are acquainted, but we haven't spent that much time together. So if you want to set up the lunch or dinner, Michael, go right ahead.
Okay. Hey, Bob Costas, congratulations on a tremendous career. I know you're not finished speaking, but if I'm correct, 3 World Series, 10 league championships, and a hell of a lot of awards. I wish you all good things. I hope I see you soon. And Robert Costa, a busy day for you. Thank you so much.
Real quick, Michael.
Go ahead.
If Bob Costas is looking for something to do now, Costas and Costa podcast talking baseball and politics, I'm in, Bob.
Yeah, except I think it would be Costas and Costa, not Costa and Costas.
only based on seniority, that's all.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Michael.
Appreciate both of you. Thank you. Yeah, 2 good guys. Oh, my God. Love that. Love that. We'll come back to the Bagel Barrel. If you have a political comment that you want to make, TC will work the room. We'll take some calls from people who are dialing into the program. We have great guests lined up for Hour 2 and Hour 3. Some things I want to get off my chest toward the end of the program as well. Autumn is filled with fun activities like apple picking, haunted houses, backyard bonfires, cleaning out autumn leaves from your gutters. That's not so much fun. If you're tired of unclogging gutters or you don't even know what they look like anymore because there's so much in them, it's time for a permanent solution with a LeafFilter. Right now, you can save up to 30% off your entire purchase at LeafFilter.com/Michael. LeafFilter uses award-winning patented technology to keep everything out of your gutters except the water. No holes, no gaps, no large openings for debris to get through. A LeafFilter Trusted Pro is going to clean out, realign, and seal your gutters before before installing the LeafFilter. And every installation comes with a lifetime no-clogs guarantee, so pick out a pumpkin and leave your gutters to LeafFilter. Protect your home and never clean out gutters again with LeafFilter, America's #1 gutter protection system. Schedule your free inspection. Get up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Michael. Free inspection up to 30% off. LeafFilter.com/Michael. See a representative for warranty details.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Play Gun Lake. Love Play Gun Lake. Play Gun Lake online casino and sportsbook app. It's from BetParks. It's the only app that I ever use and recommend. Detroit Pro Football is now 7-1. There's a canter in front of me with a Lion sweatshirt. Yeah, am I allowed to say that? Detroit is 7-1. Get some skin in the game. Play Gun Lake. Remember, when I was in Grand Rapids a couple of weeks ago, I took advantage of the new user opportunity, and I went all in on Detroit. So I'm excited about how well they're doing. And it's not just, during the game. It's when you're in the dental chair, when you're wherever you are, waiting for an airplane. Download the app, the Sportsbook. Get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. Your casino bonus has to be wagered. It's playgunlake.com for details. Got to be 21 and in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Michael Joe, I'm a Philadelphia native.
Hi, Joe.
And I voted for gridlock today. I split my ticket, and I have a request and a question for you. The request is to be...
Sounds complicated. I'm a little nervous now.
I'm going to be your +1 on that dinner with Robert Costa and Bob Costas.
Okay, that's the easy part. I feel like there's something more difficult coming.
Here's the question.
Wouldn't it be great to bring them both to town for a live event?
Yeah.
Over at the County Theater? Costa and Costas? That'd be fun.
My question for you is a money and politics question, which is going to have a nice tail and a story going beyond the election. 2 examples this year. Sitting president got pushed out by money, and you have the richest man in the world on the stage with the other candidate. What is your view on that?
You think that it was money that pushed out President Biden?
I'm talking in broad terms, but they stopped putting the money in. Let's put
For
it that
sure,
way. That was
right. But I think it eventually, frankly, when the Smerconish 2024 comes out, and we look at the history of this election, I think that George Clooney op-ed is going to be perceived as having been a milestone event because he was willing to say things that people around the president, including the vice president, were unwilling to say. I mean, that has to be acknowledged.
I agree with that. That was definitely a turning point, but he's part of that money crowd.
Yeah.
I'm not being conspiratorial. I understand. Call it like I say it.
Well, how about this? We need campaign finance reform because what they don't do is what's going on here at the Bagel Barrel today. They don't mingle. They're there Tuesday. I'll have this conversation with Congressman Patrick Murphy, who's going to be here in 10 minutes, and I'm sure he'll agree. To live in Washington these days means that you live with an ideological twin in some flop house on Capitol Hill Tuesday through Thursday. You don't relocate your partner, your spouse, whether it's male, female, doesn't matter, and you don't bring the kids with you. And it's easier to demonize someone with whom you have no personal relationship. You could say something nasty about a person who you've never even met, but that's not the way that it had been. So thank you for that. Appreciate your comment. Dan, now I'm going to you with one of our callers, and TC will continue on. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, going out to the West Coast. Juan in California.
Juan, California, greetings. Happy Election Day. What did you most want to say?
Hang on, I'll be back. I got a quick question for you. Why is so important my vote if at the end the electoral college decides? And also, really quick, when does the pollsters hold on information so they don't move the balance towards one another like we saw yesterday? And why they do it? When Donald Trump found out that he was 3 points low or below Kamala, he panicked. When and why they do that?
Are you saying that they're not forthcoming with the data that they're having, these pollsters?
That is correct.
I mean,
if we're on a flip coin right now. Right. We're going on a flip coin right now. And we have been on a flip coin for months.
I don't know. Juan, can I tell you, even though I'm here and spreading all of the data that suggests it's a coin toss, let's see what the next 24 hours bring. It would not surprise me if in the end, I'm not making a prediction, it wouldn't surprise me if it is not as close when all is said and done. We'll see. And I promise that in the next couple of days, I'll spend time on this program going back through the data and determining who was accurate and who was not. TC, I think you're buried in the crowd at the Bagel Barrel. It's your turn.
But here we go.
Go ahead.
Name and a question, please.
Hi, Michael. This is Lisa Linkowski. I'm over in New Jersey, and I just wanted to know how many Manhattans will you be having this evening?
Only one, because I need to keep my wits about me. How many would I like to have? More than one. How's that for a safe answer? Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate the comment.
Do you want another one, or where?
Yeah, go ahead, TC.
Okay,
then I'm going to go back to Dan.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for inviting us all here. I have a lot of questions. One of the things that has bothered me that I wanted to call you on is the fact that the former president, he's referred to as the former president. I'm one of those guys, when I hear a criminal being introduced on TV and a newscaster calls him a gentleman, it gets me irritated. And I don't understand why former President Trump doesn't have felon before his name. Just being accurate and on the spot.
In other words, are you saying, like, to me as a broadcaster, that every time I mention his name I should say felon Donald Trump?
I'm kind of implying that, but in a professional, proper way, because he is a felon, just like he's the former president. So there's balance there. I get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to react to that. I think I've made, and everybody knows, it's abundantly clear that he's a convicted felon. I err on the side of when Patrick Murphy, who has not been charged, much less convicted of anything.
He just walked in. Be careful what you say.
When Patrick sits down, I will regard him as Congressman Patrick Murphy, because I just feel like that honorific is something that he deserved. Dan, one more real quick, Dan. Work another one in really quick.
Yeah, going to John in Michigan.
Hey, John, go ahead and welcome to Doylestown.
Actually, you know what? John just hung up as we said that. Apparently, he didn't want to say it. So, we'll go to Jerry in Washington.
Hi, Jerry. Go ahead. What did you most want to say?
Hey, I'm just really curious to know why Donald Trump's been given a pass on the situation with calling Kamala
30
a communist sympathizer when he's the one that supports all these. He supports Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin supports all
but
these
for
communist.
that, okay, but let's be fair. And for that, he gets called a fascist and a dictator. We will come back to the most important county and the most important state in just a moment.
Michael Smerconish program.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Live from the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Here's Michael Smerconish.
As I like to say, welcome back to the most important town in the most important county in the most important state of this election. Joining me now, ladies and gentlemen, former Congressman Patrick Murphy is with me. He was the first Iraq War veteran elected to Congress, also former acting Secretary of the Army. I know you were listening in your car as you drove here, right?
I was.
So you heard Robert Costa say, oh, Patrick Murphy is coming up. He'll probably play a prominent role if there is a Harris administration.
Yeah,
you want to comment on that?
I think Robert Costa is a great American. He's one of the best journalists and good Notre Dame graduate here from Central Bucks County. Lived at my mom's house, my mom and dad's house, when he was interning for State Senator Joe Conti here in Doylestown.
Wow, Joe's a good friend. I love these stories.
Yeah, my mom is Republican. My dad is a Democrat. After serving in the Navy, he served as a cop in Philadelphia for 22 years. So, yeah, I love Bob Costa. I have absolutely no comment, though, about
Okay,
that.
so listen, I'm trying to play it straight, keep it fair, right down the middle. You're allowed and encouraged to be partisan. You're playing a role for the vice president. I say that because the next person who's going to sit in that seat is Jim Worthington.
Oh, yeah.
So they're certainly going to hear from the Trump perspective in Bucks County. But give a national audience listening to us the lay of the land. You know Bucks County. You represented Bucks County. Why so significant in this election?
Well, I mean, I'm a numbers guy, right? So people say, all right, it's a swing state, swing district, swing county. When you look at Bucks County in 2016, it went down to 3,000 votes in 2016. In 2020, it was 17,000 votes. So when you have Donald Trump, who won 2016 by 40,000 votes in Pennsylvania, and then Joe Biden won it by 80,000 votes, it's going to be neck and neck. And, I have a lot of respect for Jim Worthington. In fact, I'm going to text him today, was my plan, because, when January 6th happened, he had about 3 busloads and went down for January 6th. But they were patriots that went down there to be there for Donald Trump, who they supported. Most of those folks, in my understanding, none of those folks in those 3 buses, though, from Bucks County, had anything to do with went out there and hurt 140 Capitol police officers. And so, Jim and I disagree on politics, but I do respect him, and he is working warriors like me that fight for democratic values.
As well as this area, if there were a particular township, a particular community that I said to Patrick Murphy, here's a silver ball, I can show you this at midnight tonight. I'm just curious, what would you most want to see?
I think Levittown has to come out. Levittown,
you would want to see the turnout for a Democratic area.
Yeah, and I think the numbers have to be there because it's a lot of Reagan Democrats. It's the area that I was very successful in. The Fitzpatrick's are very successful in. And listen, there are a lot of veterans. There's a lot of veterans. There's 60,000 veterans in Bucks County. And then. Catholics. I mean, you look at Pennsylvania as a whole, there's 12 million people in Pennsylvania. There's 3 million Catholics. So it's it's a voting bloc that is more independent.
She should have attended the Al Smith dinner. A huge mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not to have the split screen. You'd agree with that, right? Be funny. He was rude. Right? He didn't respect the line that night.
Right. And he couldn't read from a teleprompter because they didn't have teleprompters, and so he was pissed
and
off.
He complained about,
Yeah. Listen, with all due respect, if I'm going to be a little partisan here, I would say Donald Trump. And again, I know this is Doylestown, so there's Democrats, Republicans in this room here.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, and listen, I'm only. From his father. The guy that, when he was president, we had 8 years of Barack Obama. The last 6 years, 75 straight months of job growth, turns it over to Donald Trump, and what happens? He adds $8 trillion to our national debt. I was a Blue Dog Democrat. I believe in national security, and then I think the national debt, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Mullen, said, that's the number one national security risk of America. It's our own debt. Every American, including my daughter Maggie Murphy, my son Jack Murphy, they owe $106,000 to our national debt. And it's like a bad credit card. We pay interest on that debt. Some of the other countries. Last year, we paid over $800 billion in interest. our national debt. It's immoral. It's wrong. We can't go back to those failed policies. And he wants to now complain about the media, about everything else. I mean, come on.
Why hasn't she been able to put him away? We're talking about a guy who's 4 times indicted, 1 time convicted, and yet it is, by all the data, a coin flip.
Yeah, and I would say that she's been the underdog. She said she's the underdog. She was behind when she first started. They were behind this summer. The last 107 days of this campaign, she's been getting after it. She was in 5 cities across Pennsylvania yesterday. She was in 4 cities in Michigan the day before. They are running through the tape, Michael. It is not easy. State took this from being behind to being tied. And I think they have the momentum, and I think today's going to be a great day for America.
You think that in the end it's not close?
Oh no, I think it's going to be razor close.
You do?
I think it's going to be, thank God for the blue wall of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. But I'm thinking that it is coming down to single digits, and I think, Donald Trump won Pennsylvania in 2016 by 1%. Joe Biden won it by a little over 1%. It's going to be a 1% race.
And as I tried to educate a national audience, and this room certainly knows, when you take a look at the margin in 2016, where Hillary Clinton won Bucks County, but by a very slim margin, and Donald Trump was then en route to winning Pennsylvania and winning the nation, as compared to 2020, when it was a significant victory for Joe Biden, en route to winning Pennsylvania by 80,000 round number votes, and then winning the Electoral College. It really is, this area is kind of a harbinger of what's to come, a good indicator of the outcome.
No doubt. I mean, right down the road here, miles away, we have Delaware Valley University, right? That is the national farm school of the world, right? Of our country, right? And agriculture in Pennsylvania is the second largest industry, right? We're a big pharmaceutical, industry here because we have a lot of scientists and great executives. And I would say that's why this closing argument that we're seeing. Even last night, I watched you on CNN this morning outside the county theater, but I'm a former college hockey player. The fact that you were watched Slapshot 12 nights in a row, I think makes you a great American. That's what they said today on CNN. I was like, my man, so let's get tinfoil up because I'm ready. And I no loss with Jim Worthington. I'm
the Hanson brothers.
Yeah. So all those inside jokes. But I will tell you that even last night, Donald Trump was talking about Nancy Pelosi being evil. Everyone is against political violence. Everyone's against it. When Donald Trump got shot or this summer, I prayed that day. No one wishes that on other people, right? But words matter. You can't be calling people evil. You can't be saying things that, like Liz Cheney about, I hope she puts a rifle and there's 9 people looking at her. I get it, but it is beyond the pale. And I would say, that's why in this election, when the real fight now is about independence, we have about 1.3 million independents in Pennsylvania, people like yourself, people who are
it's true.
Basically moderate conservative. And I would say when you look at that, her argument in the final days wasn't bashing down Trump. It was really about let's unify our country. I was there in Washington Crossing where George Washington crossed the river. I was there when she had Adam Kinzinger. Here's what they want to do. They want to get rid of the partisan politics that is time and time again just dividing our country when we need to be united.
TC, quick comment from the audience.
Liberal Paul, Michael.
I have a suggestion. I want to know what you guys think of this, because I think I have figured out a way to breach the divide. We work out a deal. We let Kamala Harris be president, and then we let Donald Trump pretend to be president. And then he could drive around in the car, and he can fly in the plane and say all the crazy things, and then we have somebody actually running the country, and everybody's happy.
I have not even mentioned that the poll question today at Smerconish.com is very simply who wins. And I was very proud of the selection of the 20 aggregated links that I selected late last night and very early this morning. And interestingly, there's an essay in the Wall Street Journal. Liberal Paul mentions what's to come. And I had to put this in the newsletter today. It's a pardon conversation. It's a pardon conversation. And works both ways in terms of the person who authored it saying, why don't we just settle the score with both Hunter and with Trump? And I realize there's not parity between the two, but I bring that up only to suggest there's going to be some healing necessary, Patrick, when this is over.
No doubt, yeah. And, as Abraham Lincoln once said, with malice toward none. we need to come together as a country, and it has to be actions, not just words. People will say the right words, but is there actions? I asked actually my father this question 2 days ago. Again, retired cop. I said, Dad, he sometimes votes Republican. We kind of all split our tickets, and he's voting for Kamala, very excited about it. But I said, what would you pardon Donald Trump? Just to put it past. And he said, absolutely not. I'm like, why? And he goes, there's 140 of my brothers got hurt that day on January 6th. And he goes, I will never, ever let him not be held accountable for that. So there's a lot of feeling out there about that. But I think it's absolutely a conversation we need to have, and hopefully we'll have it, because we'll look at that, and look at her for that type of leadership to make the right call to move our country forward.
Dan, I want to go with your help to Northwest Ohio and bring James into the conversation. I don't want to keep Congressman Patrick Murphy all to myself. James, you have the floor. Welcome. What did you most want to say on Election Day 2024?
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. But thank you for taking my call. I'm a rural farmer from Ohio, and grew up in a conservative home and voted conservative for Donald Trump in the first election. But then, as time progressed and everything happened, the last 2 elections I voted Democrat. I voted Democrat today. I voted for Kamala and Walz, and I think Walz was kind of the driving factor there.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Tim Walz, because Patrick Murphy, who is my guest, I think you're a former roommate on Capitol Hill. Talk to me about Tim Walz.
So we were going through. We both.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, we both served in the Army together. We both served in Congress. He won in 2006. We were going through orientation, and in Congress before he got there, he had his first daughter. My daughter was just born, and we were looking for the cheapest apartment we can get within walking distance of the Capitol. Of the 435 members of Congress, him and I were the 10 least wealthy members of Congress. So we had great credit and et cetera, but we were both paying college loans and stuff like that. So
is he ready? Is he ready for this job?
No doubt, no doubt. I was at the Art Museum last night in Philadelphia. He was in Detroit, Michigan, with his wife Gwen. They're a great American family. I mean, he served our nation for 24 years. He deployed after 9/11 when less than 1% deployed. He went there. He served as a sergeant major. He served honorably. People who attack his service are attacking our brothers and sisters veterans. It's wrong. I didn't attack J.D. Vance. Most Democrats didn't. They should never. We've asked less than 1% of America to serve the longest wars in American history. We should honor their service and never disparage their service, especially with trumped up, maked up.
I know it's such a touchy subject. You've worn the uniform of your nation. I thank you for that. When I said about Tim Walz, what's the big deal? I'm just going to generalize. He had the job, and then callers would call and they would say, no, but that's not the way he retired. It's a big thing. Yeah. It violates tradition. Maybe it's not a huge deal in the aggregate, but there have been a number of these things with him, and I wonder if they add up to a problem of being candid.
Yeah, no. He's a person of honor and integrity, no doubt about it. He should have said he was a retired command sergeant major. He served as command sergeant major. He had to serve in grade. If he did another 750 hours of the command sergeant major's course, he could have retired that rank. He didn't do it because he was running for Congress and won. But I respect him, and he said he made a mistake. What is not a mistake is his 24 years of honorable service and deploying for our nation overseas, leaving his wife, his kid, and his job.
TC, a comment from the audience here in Doylestown? Hi.
Good morning, TC and Michael. My husband and I flew in last night from Oregon. Got here at 1 a.m.
Thank you. You win. You win.
Yeah, for your show.
Thank you for that.
And also to support my brother. He is the director of Consumer Affairs here in Consumer Protection here in Bucks County. This has been a really tough week for him. He's working the elections, as are many others, and they really need our support. My question is, the divisiveness, the anger that has been occurring as people are online for their ballots, it's pretty bad. Will it settle down? How long will it take? Where are we headed next?
So half the country is going to be heartbroken tomorrow or Thursday or Friday or Saturday whenever this resolves. By the way, thank you for making that trip.
Seriously.
You're going to get to see your brother too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He picked us up.
But there's a very important...
My brother is here now.
Good. There's a very important coming together. It's going to be very difficult, and half the country is going to be heartbroken, right, come tomorrow, and we know that. My whole pitch, Patrick, is to talk about, and I'm going to say something later in the program before I leave Doylestown today. I speak a great deal about the need for mingling and volunteer work and joining organizations of the sort that I'm sure the Murphys were, and I know my parents were in this community, whether it's, dad as a Rotarian or mom at the VIA. Anybody know what the VIA is in this? Okay, right? Raising money for the hospital and all of that. But today, too many of our kids behind closed doors, technology-based, not having real relationships and interactions.
Yep, no doubt about it. And by the way, I'm out to Oregon tomorrow for one of these reasons. I'm going out there to speak with some Nike executives and to talk about the Civics Initiative. I'm co-chairing it with Tom Rooney. Tom Rooney's conservative Republican. His dad owned the Steelers, and it's the great Rooney family. We taught constitutional law at West Point together. We were in the Army together, and we served in Congress together. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Most young Americans can't name the three branches of government, right? And this is what we taught at West Point. It was like, obviously, legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch, and it's like rocks, paper, scissors. One's not more powerful than the other, right? And the democracy is messy. But when you have young Americans, to your point, that can't name the three branches of government, right? So we're launching with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation the Civics Initiative, where they compete. You see spelling bees on ESPN.
Yep.
We're creating civics bees for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Love
free.
it.
We're getting after it. But that's the type of thing where you get mentors, you get teachers, you get folks in the community, to let these young kids compete for a prize and get them active in public service or, appreciating the great democracy that we have. And it is messy. And as Dr. Benjamin Franklin once said, it's a republic if we can keep it.
Patrick Murphy is my guest. We'll come back to the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania in just a couple of minutes. We'll get the flip side of this county from a gentleman named Jim Worthington in about 10 minutes' time. Your phone calls are welcome as well. I don't mean to exclude the callers across the country. I'll do a better job of coming to all of you. Call the usual number. It's right on your dashboard. The holidays are almost here. My buddy Steven Singer has the number one gift. Everybody knows it's diamond stud earrings. Steven has the most beautiful value, real natural diamond studs anywhere. Choose a great pair of Anita diamond stud earrings. They start at just $298. He makes it so easy to buy real diamond jewelry for somebody you love. No phony sales, no haggling, no nonsense, just easy and fun. Steven's real diamond studs are flawless to the eye, colorless. They come with his unbeatable full value lifetime trade-in. You can trade up your diamond studs anytime and receive exactly what you paid toward a larger pair. Steven also has the best guarantee in the biz, a full 100-day, 100% no hassle, money-back guarantee, fast and free shipping. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com, click on the Anita diamond stud earrings, or visit Steven's showroom at the other corner of 8th and Walnut. Buy real diamonds from a really good guy. I was on the phone with Steven yesterday. Steven Singer Jewelers, it's IHateStevenSinger.com.
The Michael Smerconish Program. Welcome back to the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
Maybe we should do this on a regular basis.
Hey, brother,
it's nice. It's nice to get out. It's nice to get out. Let me include some telephone calls quickly for Congressman Patrick Murphy. Daniel, you are in Colorado. What did you most want to say?
Hey, Dr. Smerconish, thank you. I wanted to say, as an 8-year veteran of the Marine Corps, I am standing firmly behind Chase Oliver in this, the Libertarian candidate. The Libertarian Party has gone a little crazy, but Chase Oliver is an excellent candidate. I have a bachelor's degree in political science from CU Boulder. I served from 05 to 13, and I think Chase Oliver is the absolute best we have on the ballot.
Okay, so Patrick Murphy served his country as well. He's here. Why is it that you think neither of them is fit?
I don't think Harris is fit, honestly, because of her lack of executive experience. The only executive experience she really has is as VP, and she's got a lot of failures in that. Trump, we've seen, he's got a little bit more executive experience, but we've also seen 4 years of his failures as well. He's got way too much ego, and Harris has got way too much naivety. You know the word I'm trying to say,
yeah.
Sorry.
Naivete. Patrick Murphy, you want a piece of that?
Hey, first off, thank you for serving on America's JV team. If you were in the Army, you would have been America's varsity team, but the Marine Corps is pretty awesome. I'm going to kid with you, brother. That's a joke. Hey, I'm just playing with you. Hey, listen, both sides feel passionate about their candidate, but there's no doubt you can't say that Kamala Harris has spent decades of her life keeping her family safe as a frontline prosecutor, as the attorney general for the largest state in our country. That you don't get more executive experience of being the attorney general for the largest state in the country, and then obviously serving as a U.S. senator and then as the vice president. But God bless you. That's why we have America. You have difference of opinion, but hopefully we're going to help get you on board for a reelect in 4 years from now.
Barbara, Dan, help me with Barbara in Ohio next, please. She's standing by. Hi, Barbara. Welcome to Doylestown, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Love the way that sounds. What did you most want to say on this election day?
I am excited about you being there, but one of the callers earlier asked about the Electoral College and why their vote is important if the Electoral College decides it, and I wanted you to speak to that.
So, interestingly, I'll say to Patrick Murphy, I read a great piece by, I think, Jeff Greenfield recently. It seems that the Electoral College is again going to be a factor by someone, whichever side should lose this election. And he painted this whole picture of if Donald Trump should win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College, which I think is highly unlikely that that's the way it would end up. But if it were to end up that way, would there all of a sudden be a Republican movement to say, let's go to a popular vote, where right now there's no support for that, it seems, in the GOP?
Yes, I think that's exactly what you'll see.
Are you comfortable with the Electoral College as a means of getting this done? Try not to be partisan and be philosophical.
Yeah, I think we should have a popular vote. I really do. I just think that we're at that stage where all 50 states should count. And I think that's why, when you see, frankly, when you see people who are discouraged about politicians because of negative stuff, it's like, I think that when you look at the polls even now, I mean, people have a loss of confidence in our government, in church. I'm a devout Catholic, in institutions, in corporate America, and we got to get back to being Americans again. We got to get back and showing people what right looks like. And the media, I'm not busting your chops, Michael, but because I'm on Fox and et cetera, they do put on the far left and far right.
Wait. You think you have to convince me of all people of this? You shitting me?
Listen, I know. Listen, when I'm on Fox, I was on yesterday. I get people who are like, "I hope you're dead. You're a homo. I get all that."
Single greatest driver of partisanship in the nature is a polarized media.
Right.
It's my hallmark. I've been saying it for years. Right. That's why I'm here in Doylestown. Right.
And I just think that we need CNN and others in your show to come place and have everyday Americans, and not just in the D.C. studios or the New York City studios. They need to talk to regular Americans that aren't going to be so.
I'm all for that. Yeah. Hey, final thought, because Jim Worthington is about to fill that seat. I'm going to give him the invitation to say what he wants to say about Trump. Something you want to say in 30 seconds about Kamala Harris?
Listen, I think Kamala Harris is a great American. I think she has worked her ass off to instill confidence in the American people and the rally people. And I will tell you that I think the polls are a little light. I think they were light on Donald Trump in 2016. and even probably 2020. But I think ever since that Dobbs decision, women across America, they don't want to be protected by Donald Trump. They want to be protected from Donald Trump because of what he did.
I will always remember the night. I will always remember the night that Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. I'm trying to think if I'm remembering the vote or when President Obama signed it. Probably the vote.
It was the vote, yeah.
But you got off that train.
Yeah.
We saw each other that night,
We had
right?
some cigars,
Had some
couple
cigars.
drinks.
Yeah.
Yep.
I give you great credit for that. All right. Patrick Murphy, thank you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. You've been hearing me talk about Chuck Norris. There's this video of him online hitting the pads, looking great, in his 80s, kicking butt, taking names. Feels like he's really in his 50s. What's even more shocking is he's stronger. He can work out longer. He's got plenty of energy left over that keeps him sharp and focused. You might be wondering how he's able to do all of this. He made one simple change. He uses Morning Kick, a refreshing drink designed to nourish your body, support gut health, boost energy, and feel more youthful. Morning Kick, it combines 10 supplements in one, and when it comes to health, it's been a real game changer for so many. People love it. It tastes great. If you want to feel better, gain energy, enhance your overall well-being, go to roundhouseprovisions.com, roundhouseprovisions.com. Use code MORNING or text the word MORNING to 511-511 and claim 40% off. They've got a 90-day satisfaction guarantee. Text MORNING to 511-511. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. The product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and text fees may apply.
You're listening to Election Day on POTUS. Welcome back to the Michael Smerconish program on Sirius XM Channel 124.
Yes. I've been describing this as the most important town in the most important county in the most important state. We can agree on that, right? We are here in Doyle.
I like Doylestown, but I love Newtown too. So I think that's
Newtown's all right. But ever since Goodnose is no longer where it used to be, I just don't feel the same.
No, the good news is I own the old house now.
Is that true?
Yeah, I own the old Goodnose house, so I'm going to try to do something really historic with that.
I used to love Goodnose.
Yeah.
In fact, many election day, I would make that my place to go for, a burger and sit at the counter. This is Jim Worthington. A nice Doylestown welcome for this gentleman, please. Happy to have him. He led, what's the best way I should describe you? You led the Republican delegation at the RNC for Donald Trump. I've read that you are the guy who had the idea and executed the whole McDonald's in Trevose and Feasterville. By the way, you're looking at McDonald's royalty from Doylestown because on South Main Street, I don't know what the vice president's record is relative to McDonald's. I can tell you I was the maintenance man for a solid year at the Mickey D's in D-Town.
There you go.
So how do I properly introduce you so that people know of the relationship you have with Donald Trump?
Well, I'm kind of a Republican. I'm not really part of the GOP.
Right.
I'm not a party guy. I mean, people here probably find it's hard to believe, but you've give me a good Democrat somewhere locally, I'll probably support them, and I have. In Newtown, I have. I just try to find the best candidates. I got on the Trump train in 2016 when I advocated for the bill called the Right to Try, which he talks about a lot, which allows terminal Americans the right to try experimental drugs.
That's my friend Val Mihalik.
Yeah. There
Don and Val Mihalik,
well,
I think
they were part of my foundation.
Okay.
So my foundation, Have a
good
Heart,
friends.
advocated for that bill. I had two friends that were terminally ill with ALS. I was never involved in politics. We started I won the, I was unendorsed by the Republican Party in 2016. I was an outsider as well. I won the delegation. I connected with Mike Pence, who was in favor of the right to try. He had passed it in his state. And basically, we saw a pathway with Donald Trump to have him supported. In 2018, he passed it. Everybody that had terminally ill, an illness prior to that could not access experimental drugs in the United States. They'd have to leave to go somewhere else.
Right. The premise was, if unfortunately it seems like you're on your way out, we don't want to stand in your way of trying some treatment that you want to have.
Yep, and it was 4 families in the United States in my foundation that got that passed, and that was for all Americans. And now I'm very proud of that, and I was very proud that the president signed on to that in May of 2018.
So that was the beginning of a friendship?
Yeah, that was part of it. And then he appointed the President's Fitness Council, and I was served with the, people like Dr. Oz and Bill Belichick and different celebrities that to try to get the message out. I was kind of the practitioner. They were the guys to deliver the message, and I had a passion for fitness, exercise, and particularly youth sports. That was my main passion. 70% of the kids that play youth sports at the age of 13 stop, which is unfortunate. And it wasn't just about sports, too, because I think there's too much emphasis on kids in sports. I think there should be a lot more emphasis just kids in general being healthy, and particularly the inner city, which most people will find this maybe interesting, is my real passion's the inner city. Youth in the inner city and helping those people, the minority, less fortunate people financially. I think they've been neglected. Their health is not good. If he gets elected again, I'm going to make that something that I want to do.
So Patrick Murphy, former member of Congress, was just here. I asked him to give me the lay of the land from his perspective as a Democrat hoping Kamala Harris. Let's focus on Bucks County. Sure. Read the tea leaves. What does Jim Worthington see?
Well, I will tell you, every indicator here looks good for Republicans. So the early voting was 78,000 requested vote by mail or early voting versus 54,000. So going into election day today, we're down 22,000, which is significant for Republicans because remember they usually go down 4-1 because vote by mail. We were stupid. Democrats were smart. They adopted it early. I got to give them credit. They always seem to be half a step ahead of us, and they cultivated that. And we learned the hard way in 2022 when, I predicted if we didn't have a strong vote by mail program and early voting that we would lose again, and that's exactly what happened. Oz went into 2022 on election night at 801, down 800,000 votes. There's no way to overcome that difference, but now it's 1.4-1, and that is not a good sign if you're a Democrat. And if you're a Republican, that just tells you that we usually turn out a lot more on election day. And what I'm hearing all across Bucks County, the polls are packed. And I'm also hearing that in Philadelphia, there's no lines. So I think that and I just really got that from the headquarters. So I think that's a good sign. Look, you never know until everybody shows up. It's a long day, but I think it's looking really good.
Are you originally from Bucks County?
No, Montgomery County, right down the road. Matter of fact, it's funny, CB West was our big arch rival. I went to Happer Horsham.
Of course.
So maybe 3 miles down the road.
Right, yeah. I went to CB West.
Yeah, there you go.
If I say Alan Rachi, does that mean anything to you?
I was a sophomore when I saw him blow up the Bucks Mile Leaf. One of the classic games was the clock game that you probably went to.
Absolutely. As a kid.
Yep. That was determined the champion.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Keith Valley was the middle school that was the feeder.
Yeah, Keith Valley fed into it. And
I went to Holly Kong, and Keith Valley was always tough.
Yeah, well, I went to, what year did you graduate?
1980.
Yeah, so you're younger than me. I'm 74. I'm an old guy.
Jesus, look at you.
Yeah, so I'm 68 now. So yeah, I actually it was the Happer Horsham Junior High back in that day, and that was in Hatboro.
So we both have some local credibility, right? I was born and raised right here in Doylestown, and as I have watched former President Trump during the course of the last several weeks, time and again, I would say to myself, just trying to be an analyst, not to be critical of him, critical of Harris, just I have a lot of political experience and I'm trying to understand. And I would say to myself, why in the world would he have said that? And I could give you 5 different examples, but you know what they are. That's going to be so alienating where I come from, meaning here, where I think that there are some potential reluctant Trump voters who don't like him, but were inclined to vote for him because of what he represented in the economy. And I just don't understand whether there was a method to his madness in being so dark in the way he closed this campaign, how he didn't come out with Nikki Haley. She wrote that opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. She was clearly prepared to come out on the trail. And I look at it and I say, but for his hard-headedness, he would have had her at his side making a pitch to the kind of people who are here in Doylestown. What do you think?
Well, I think, look, the guy's his own guy. He's obviously been successful. I mean, I hear the crazy stuff like he's a failed businessman. I mean, I've been to half a dozen of his world-renowned properties. The guy's a self-made billionaire. People want to say that, his daddy started him, with whatever, and that's not true. He's way. I hope my kids do what he's done versus what his dad did. But that being said, look, I'm not sure if you see the whole sound clips of when he speaks.
No, Jim. These people will tell you on my radio show, for the same reason you're here right now, I want to hear it. And this is my producer. She's expert, TC, and knows never take somebody out of context. Give it all to me. People on both sides, we played everything.
Well, look, here's the bottom line. Are there times that he says things I wish he kind of softened? Absolutely. Yeah. I know him personally. I know him as a guy who's a compassionate. People love him that know him. I'm a member at Mar-a-Lago. I go to 70% of the people that are work for him are minority employees. The other people, 30% are work visa. If you go up to them and say, I employ 1,000 people, so I go up to the people. I respect the people that work because the people that work for me make me successful. And I ask them, what do you think of the president? They go, we love the boss. He's the best. I've worked 25 years. These are black employees. These are work visa employees. When you get to know him, he's different than what you see on the thing. Now, look, we could play that, no offense, but we could play. I was just called, trash and garbage by Joe Biden recently and all the 50th. I'm not into you will not hear me say one bad thing about Kamala Harris. I will tell you, the furthest I'll go is I think she's not qualified for the job. And I'll give you one example why. Her first big test, her first big decision was she did not pick Josh Shapiro for her.
We agree on that.
For vice president. So that alone tells me, that is not.
If she loses, that's at the top of the list.
That is the top of the list. And I'm not a Josh Shapiro. Again, I said this earlier. I'm not a Josh Shapiro, hater because he's a Democrat. I think he's done a decent job. In fact, I cheer for him. I cheer for Joe Biden. Right now, I cheer for Joe Biden. I just don't think he's done a good job. Doesn't mean that I have horrible things to say to him. I'm not into the Sleepy Joe and all that crazy stuff. I let some of your people that were yelling at me here earlier, calling me an insurrection, leave that to them. They're all about that. The people hear about. I'm not into that.
January 6th, you took what, 3 busloads of folks down to the events?
Yeah, I did not take anybody down there. That's why I sued your congressional candidate 2 years ago, Ashley Ahaz, and she said,
Wait.
And
my congressional candidate?
Well,
What
not
are you
yours,
talking
but
about?
The
I'm an independent.
Okay, good.
I'm an independent. I'm a registered independent.
The other side's congressional.
No, but I'm genuinely asking. I just
So
want to
here,
know
you
the
want-
fact. You were there, right?
Well, okay, so let me tell you. We have a group called People for Trump.
Right.
After November, the election, there was some run-up to say, it lasted a week to figure out who won. During that time, we let the courts decide. There was a certain point where, it was over. And I made it clear it was over. And remember, this is during a COVID year, which I lost $15 million in revenue during COVID. So I said back to my director of my advocacy group, Linda Mitchell, look, we need to get back to work. We need to just, it's over. Joe Biden's the president. Let's move on. So a few weeks before that, there was this rally announced at the Ellipse, which was Women for America, because that was the name of it, not Stop the Steal. I know, because the guy who publicized it's a friend of mine. So Women for America decide they're going to do something at the Ellipse. The president wasn't even scheduled to be in that at that event until a day before, by the way, for the record. So our volunteers that, work tirelessly for us, 50, 67-year-old, mainly women, 90%, wanted to go see him for the last time. Linda Mitchell asked me. I said, no effing way. We're done. The election's over. Let's get back to work. I've lost $15 million. I need to get back to work. So we referred her to a individual, Kathy Barnett, who ran for Senate, because she was running a bus ride down there. And my assistant went to speak to her and said, well, we're all squared away. They're going to go with Kathy. 2 days later, she came back to me and said, I don't feel comfortable. These are my friends. These are people to knock on doors. These are good people. I don't feel safe for them getting there and back. I don't want to leave somebody in Washington. I said, Linda, you do what you want, but keep me out of it. She sent 3 buses down. I drove down the night before with my son and my neighbor because they wanted to see the president one last time as the president. We got down there. We left at 2:15, coming up the 95, and then my phone started exploding from Steve Sanacero, the state senator here, and other people saying you're this, you're that. And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I didn't even know what was going on.
Did any of the folks who were part of that group get anywhere near the Capitol? Anybody get arrested?
You know what's funny? To this day, I don't know, and I don't think so, because that's how little I knew about it.
I got to take a quick time out.
Sure, no problem.
Did I give you the chance to finish that whole narrative?
Well, I did want to finish it once you come back.
Finish it now.
Well, so what happened was the narrative is that I was trying to I was an insurrectionist. I mean, are you crazy? Like I'm just the guy that they sent buses down. I had nothing to do with it. And I understand why she did it, and I was fine with it. But to make a long story short, then within 2 days of that, a guy in Doylestown here, I can't say his name, started an online petition through Move On. They had 10,000 people sign it. I lost over the next 3 to 4 years, $3 to $4 million of lost business. They done my advertisers. They threatened my advertisers, said, if you keep advertising with Worthington, we're going to boycott you next. Well, of course, you know me. That's not going to sit well with me. I spent $1 million to my foundation, my non-for-profit that does things all over. In fact, you got a handicap playground in Doylestown I paid for. They paid me $200,000. They all had to apologize. And the best thing, Michael, Ashley had to have lunch with me. So she had lunch.
McDonald's?
No, we went to Rocco's in Newtown. She had lunch with me. She was so mean-spirited and so caustic that 3 hours later, her attorney, who's a huge Democratic supporter, I'm not going to say his name, called me up, apologized for her, and said, I want to give you $1,000 to your charity.
I got to take
bad it was.
I got to take a time out. When I come back with our remaining minutes, don't hold back. Tell me what you really want to say.
Got to set the record straight.
Hiring the right candidate can be a real challenge. The search becomes time-consuming and tiresome. If you're an employer who can relate, I've got one question for you. Have you tried ZipRecruiter? ZipRecruiter has figured out how to solve this very problem. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Smerconish. ZipRecruiter smart technology works fast to find top talent and qualified candidates so that you don't waste time or money. You can invite top candidates for your job to apply and encourage them to apply sooner. So relax and employers and let ZipRecruiter speed up your hiring. See it for yourself. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Smerconish. Do it right now. Try it for free. That's the same price as a genuine smile from a stranger. Picture perfect sunset or a cute dog running up to you and licking your hand. ZipRecruiter.com/Smerconish. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Important state of the 2024 election.
I do love
You're
it.
listening to the
I
Michael
love it, I love
Smerconish
it, I love
program,
it.
live at the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, on SiriusXM's POTUS, channel 124.
Okay, so we're back in Doylestown. Jim Worthington continues to be my guest. I've neglected calls, and I apologize. Al, quickly from California, what do you most want to say to this Donald Trump supporter in Bucks County, Pennsylvania?
Hey, I tell you, I'm so grateful to be out here in a bluish state after spending all this time in the South. For
said to my audience, and Jim listens to me every day, or he's about to start listening to me every day. I have said, thank you, Al. He's in the strongest position, your guy, former President Trump, that he's been in all three of these runs. And if there's a hidden vote for him, as there was in 2016 or 2020, then it will not be close. You know that a lot of people think that this year the reluctance is on the part of Kamala Harris's supporters. How do you read that whole issue?
I think you nailed it. I mean, the bottom line, look at the states like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Florida, all the early voting is in the favor of the Republicans. They are going into election day ahead. And you know how we turn out the vote. So I think these swing states are looking really good. I'm not sure about Wisconsin and Michigan at the end of the day. You know, I'm not expecting to win that, but if we do, that's great. But I'll tell you, Pennsylvania, looks great. And the bottom line is every indication. Let's look at a statistic in Pennsylvania. In 2020, there was 800,000 more registered Democrats in Pennsylvania than Republicans. Right now, it's below 300,000. That in itself is huge. Vote by mail, we've got it below 2 to 1. You know how strong we are on Election Day. We think that's a patriotic duty of ours to go on Election Day. I've been voting by mail for the last 4 years. I think it's great.
I love it too.
Yeah.
They say that she's got a better ground game than does Trump.
It's all bull. I mean, nobody's more involved in the ground game in Bucks County and through the state of Pennsylvania than me. And I can tell you that if you drive around Bucks County, you'll see 15,000 signs. We had 250 Trump Force people. We've had people from all over the country come in to knock on doors, working on low propensity voters. It's not knocking on every door. It's the people that don't vote that you want to get out.
Well, but that goes back to the point that I made earlier when you first sat down, where I don't understand why he closed so dark. And others say it's because he's trying to drive off the sofa the 80 million who were eligible in the last cycle and didn't come out to vote. Do you think that was the methodology that he was using?
You know, you probably followed a hell of a lot closer to me. I put my head down. There's 4 things I do. 1 is I raise money. 1 is I'm an advocate. I get the ground game going. 3 is I run events. I had J.D. Vance last night at my place for his last event. And I'm a surrogate for the president. I try to get rid of the noise. You know, if you start looking only good when you go out on a limb. I'm looking between 11 and 12 o'clock. They call Pennsylvania for the president. I really do.
That would be shocking to me, given the lack of pre-canvassing. Very quickly, Dan, give me Joseph in St. Louis, Missouri, for my guest here in Doylestown, Jim Worthington. Joseph, a very quick comment. Go.
So I know you guys don't want to miss anything, but isn't this about the time you start getting suggestions for the next president to start doing us favors, like video games for schools for mathematics and no-interest loans and grants for manufacturing in the United States? But there's millions of these suggestions that need to start gathering. So wouldn't that be more important than almost anything else?
No, to me, thank you, though. That feels like a good conversation for tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. You get the final word. Thank you for being here. I said to Patrick Murphy, say whatever the hell you want to say about your candidate. Now I'm giving you equal time.
Yeah, you know, look, here's the bottom line. I'm a President Trump supporter, one, because I know him personally, and I've seen a lot of the things he's done, and I think that if we just look at policies, and that's really what this is all about. If we stop with the name calling on either side and just look at policies, I mean, he wants a strong border. He wants to stop the fentanyl from coming across the border, the southern border. We look back at the record. We had no new conflicts globally when he was president. We've had 2 or 3 now. I mean, all the different things. And look, inflation is rampant. We're still paying high prices. I mean, I just believe that he's the guy that has the track record. And Kamala, I just don't have any confidence in her. And Tim Walz, I just have no idea. That decision alone made me think that she's not capable.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Jim.
Clear.
Yes.
edition of the Michael Smerconish Program.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Live from the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, here's Michael Smerconish.
How great does that sound? Okay, so, by the way, time is flying. This is the start of our final hour, which is so unfortunate, but welcome back to the most important town, in the most important county, in the most important state in the 2024 election. There are two introductions that I'm going to give my next guest. So here's the official one, then I'll give you the real one, okay? The official one says Charlie Gerow is a national conservative leader with deep Pennsylvania roots. He served as the vice chairman of CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, and the American Conservative Union. He resigned, by the way, in August of 2023 following several other resignations that raised questions about the management of CPAC. He's a small businessman. He's the CEO of Quantum Communications. He's won numerous awards and recognitions for his leadership of Quantum, and for decades has been a conservative voice in the Pennsylvania media. That's the official introduction. Now,
just the way my mom wrote it.
The unofficial introduction is that when I was coming of age here in 1980, having just turned 18 and registered to vote for the first time as a Republican, very excited about Ronald Reagan and very excited about George Herbert Walker Bush. Charlie was a young lawyer. Were you even finished from the Villanova Law School?
Hadn't finished law school yet.
Okay. He was a law student who nevertheless had an important responsibility for Ronald Reagan in Pennsylvania in the campaign, and we met here mutually through Bucks County Republican politics. And it was Charlie Gerow, and you know me, big advocate of KonMari, but the things that matter to me, I keep. I have in a scrapbook is something where you put together artifacts of your... I have in a scrapbook at home Charlie Gerow's business card from back in the day, where on the back he said 1:50 p.m., be at 9th and I guess it would have been Christian, Esposito's Meat Market. And this was him giving me a tip that the following day in the Italian market in Philadelphia, Ronald Reagan was going to work the stands, but end up in Esposito's Meat Market. Mike Stockel Jr., a childhood friend, and we're still close, who was here in the first hour of the program, he and I skipped school. We got on the train into the old Reading train shed, boarded a trolley, made it down to 9th Street. Ronald Reagan was working the crowd, and we were standing in Esposito's. Nobody else was around. We had no idea if I'd gotten a bad tip from Charlie. But then I looked in the case and spelled out in sausage, it said Reagan 1980 or Reagan for president. And I said to my buddy, we are in the right place. The door opened, Ronald Reagan walked in, and here we are, right? These two kids who skipped school from Bucks County to go down and meet him with a pocket Instamatic camera that we quickly passed between ourselves to take a picture with the future president, only I hadn't wanted to carry the flash attachment on the train from Doylestown. Oh, TC is holding. That's the picture that resulted, which you can barely make out the two of us together. I did, again because of Charlie, in August of that year, before I went to Lehigh University, have a second chance at a $250 fundraiser for Arlen Specter at the Bellevue Stratford, where Charlie slapped a name tag on my lapel of my only sport coat. That was the price of admission to get into a Reagan event. This time I carried the flash. I took the 110 film to the photomat at the Doylestown Shopping Center, and the picture came back beautiful of myself with future President Ronald Reagan. That's the nature of my friendship with this man, Charlie Gerow.
And I still have...
So thank you, Charlie.
And I still have the Christmas card.
Yes, I did.
There's that photograph. I think you sent it out like 11 straight years.
I still send it out. I'm immensely proud of that. Okay, so here's where we are. I opened the program, tried to give the lay of the land. Robert Costa was my guest. Bob Costa was my guest. Patrick Murphy has been here. Jim Worthington has been here. I'm hoping that you will speak to a national audience larger than Bucks County, even though you know Bucks so well, and talk to me about Pennsylvania. And Charlie, read the tea leaves. Where are we?
Well, as you know, Bob Costa's a good Pennsylvania boy as well.
Pennsbury High School.
Down a little bit further south in Bucks County. As I read the tea leaves, Michael, I think it's going to be a significant win for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania tonight. And I think that for a variety of different reasons. Most notably, the shift demographically in Pennsylvania to the south and the west, and how dramatic the vote is going to be there, which, as you know, not that long ago was pretty solid blue, but is now really red and activated, energized, anxious to get out to vote if they haven't already done so. And I think that's going to be where you're going to see the real pickup. As you know, right here in Bucks County, they've done very, very well, turned the registration around this fall, and I think they'll do all right here. But the collar counties around Philadelphia are still going to be a problem for the Trump campaign and for any Republican running statewide. But I think what you'll see in the T, I'm sure you've talked about that
I have
today, and what you're going to see in the Southwest is what's going to put it over the top for the Trump campaign.
So back in 1980, when I was coming of age, and you were coming of age, but far ahead of me in terms of your experiences.
Not that far ahead, jeez.
In the Philly burbs, and I went back, Charlie, and I looked. Politics PA has this wonderful presentation of the electoral maps of Pennsylvania from I think 76 forward, and I wanted to make sure that my memory was accurate. That in 80. Reagan, of course, lost Philadelphia, I say because of the registration edge, but that Reagan ran so well in the suburbs, and then in the re-election so well, and then George Herbert Walker Bush so well. This used to be reliable Republican territory, and then became increasingly purple and now has gone blue. Bucks, where we are, the least so. Talk to me now about the Southeast. What needs to happen tonight for one or the other to win?
You might remember that Bob Asher put out a big, gigantic button, which he wanted all the county chairmen to see, that Montgomery County chairman, had been the number one county for President Reagan in 1980. 75,000 vote margin there. You think about that, and today,
unbelievable.
It's going to vote significantly for Kamala Harris. But what you've seen is what I alluded to earlier, Michael, this demographic shift. The collar counties around Philadelphia are fairly wealthy, well-educated, etc. The quote-unquote elites that they used to talk about back in 1980 when Ronald Reagan was running, the elites were silk-stocking Republicans. Today, they're Democrats, whereas in southwestern Pennsylvania that I talked about a moment ago, the working class, union families there that used to be called Reagan Democrats are now Trump Republicans. So I think there's the big shift in Pennsylvania. The collar counties around Philadelphia are going to vote for Kamala Harris tonight. Bucks County, going to be a little bit closer, but it extends out even into Lancaster County, which has always been the ultimate firewall for Republicans. But I think in the rest of the T and West, you're going to see a big vote for.
And you don't buy the idea that there is a hidden Harris vote, that women have not been recognized for the role they're going to play in giving her victory based on reproductive rights?
I think that vote is already pretty well baked into the cookie. And I think there are some women who do not find Kamala Harris's extreme view particularly appealing, who are going to vote as well. So I think that vote, the quote-unquote hidden vote, has already been cast.
Okay, you're a smart guy, astute political observer. You tell me why Donald Trump never took Nikki Haley into Bucks County to appear with him.
Beats me.
There's no rational explanation, right?
I mean, I think that Trump ran a very good campaign, but that was one of the shortcomings of the campaign.
Do you think even at the end, Charlie,
it would have been a big plus, and we'll live and learn.
But Charlie, how many? And I said this to Jim Worthington a few minutes ago. How many times in the last several weeks have I found myself saying, "That's alienating in Bucks County," what he just said? And I could give you 20 examples, but I won't. Did you think the same thing, or do you think that there was a method to his madness?
I think Donald Trump says what he has on his mind at the spur of the moment. I mean, he always has. That's who he is. It's in his DNA. And, folks have either come to love it, hate it, or put up with it. I mean, it's just who he is. I don't know that it's all pre-calculated, as so many musings by political candidates out on the hustings are. They've got everything pre-scripted and written down, and other people.
I get it. There's like a Bulworth quality to him. The Warren Beatty movie.
And there are some folks that find that very appealing. Young men are saying increasingly they're going to support Donald Trump. Why? He's tough and he just says it the way it is.
Isn't he capped somewhere at 47 or 48%? How can he actually clear the bar that he needs?
I think he clears the bar in a couple of ways, Michael. First of all, he is today more popular than he has been at any point in his political career. And polling data, reflects that across the board. So I think he's got an opportunity to get pretty darn close to 50%, but that's in national polls. And as you know, national results are going to take into account California, which is going to vote overwhelmingly for Harris, New York, Illinois, and you get those gigantic margins there, whereas in other states the margins may be suppressed dramatically, but the electoral votes will still go to Donald.
Does Charlie Gerow have an anecdotal story for me? Meaning, we both know the data, right? We can speak about the stock market influence, we can talk about the betting markets, but is there a person in your orbit? Is there a yard sign that you've seen? Is there an exchange you've had? When I ask this question, oftentimes people say to me, well, I had this Uber driver. But is there something that has occurred where you've said to yourself that's enlightening?
Yeah, I used to talk to the taxi drivers.
Right.
But now
wait, what's a taxi?
Yeah, exactly. Now it's got to be the Uber drivers. And,
yeah.
You know, Mike, I've been around the track a few times.
Sure.
So have you.
Yes.
And you get a flavor. But the flavor for me is a bunch of guys that stand on the corner in front of the Presbyterian Apartments in downtown Harrisburg.
I knew you were going to have an answer to this question.
They're
Go ahead.
African-American men. They're older. They're somewhat grizzled, some of them. They're tough guys. I've talked to them throughout this campaign. There's only one of them that's voting for Kamala Harris. Only one.
And to what do you attribute that? Because Joel D., who is a network anchor in Harrisburg, he and I have had this conversation about how he says, based on his barbershop interviews.
He went into a barbershop, couldn't find any Harris supporters.
Right. What's the issue there?
I think it's a couple of things. One, they saw that Trump did a good job for them economically. Their pockets were fuller when Trump was president. And two, they like his style. They just like the unvarnished, real guy that he is, and they react to that. And it's been very strong.
Dan, at headquarters, I don't want to keep Charlie Gerow to myself. Steve's been waiting a long time from Maryland. Can we work him in? Steve, thank you for your patience. Say hello to Charlie Gerow and say whatever you wanted to say on Election Day 2024.
Yeah, I was just curious about the Electoral College and if there were going to be faithless electors this time, considering it's supposed to be so close. That could change the outcome of the election.
Talk to me about your role. Thank you, Steve. Steve probably doesn't know. Did you play any role relative to Pennsylvania having an alternative slate last time? And how do you see that issue? How do you see that issue this time?
I don't think it's going to be necessary this time. We in Pennsylvania had an alternative electoral college 4 years ago because there were still several major lawsuits outstanding. And we saw the possibility that one of those lawsuits might go the Trump campaign's direction. How far?
Well, how
we
far?
actually held a vote.
Right.
The votes were counted, cast, and certified, but they were certified as an alternative slate in the event that any court of competent jurisdiction found that the Biden slates were invalid.
Which didn't happen.
So that was the end of that. Your caller's question about faithless electors, though, is a good one. There haven't been very many through the history of the United States. I remember that one was cast for George Wallace in 1968 that was supposed to go to Nixon, and I think there have been a couple of others since. The last real push, Michael, very interesting, was here in Pennsylvania in 2016, where Hillary Clinton supporters went after the Trump electors, hammer and tong, hundreds of phone calls, visits to their homes, et cetera, between Election Day and the day that the Electoral College actually met, asking them to be faithless electors and to vote for Hillary Clinton rather than Donald Trump, to whom they were pledged.
I don't want to keep you to myself. We'll take phone calls at the usual number, 855-486-1776. Comments from folks here in Doylestown at the Bagel Barrel. Also encouraged for my guest, Charlie Gerow, who will be with me for one more segment. And then I have some things that I want to share and get off my chest before the end of the hour. Did you know that your dog's food could be harming them? Our friend Dr. Marty says there's one major red flag to look out for. It's cooked dog food like kibble or canned food. When dog food is cooked at high temperatures, the amino acids often overheat and can create dangerous compounds called AGEs, or advanced glycation end products. AGEs can cause dangerous buildup in your dog's system and make them act slower or older than they are. High amounts may even be connected to cancer. It's tricky because even healthy and organic dog food is often cooked at high temperatures, so that it's really hard to avoid. And that's why Dr. Marty created his own formula called Nature's Blend. Freeze-dried raw so that you don't need to worry about potential AGEs from kibble. It's shelf-stable, mess-free, full of nutrients, and it tastes absolutely delicious for dogs. Ours, Core, and Potts seem to love the taste. We love saving up to 54% off Nature's Blend. You too can receive a free bag of Cod Krispies. They're wild-caught cod skin treats. Go to drmartypets.com/Michael or text Michael to 511-511. Text my first name to 511-511. All dogs are unique. Your dog's results can and will vary, and text fees may apply.
Bagels, coffee, and Michael Smerconish. It's Election Day on POTUS, Sirius XM Channel 124.
I said to TC that before we shut down, I said this in advance, I think I want to offer my Doylestown address.
And what did I say? I said, that sounds fascinating. What is this all about?
Still to come.
Fantastic.
That is still to come.
I can't wait.
By the way, I think this has all gone great. Right?
I
mean, we're so happy to be in Doylestown at the Bagel Barrel. It's been wonderful.
What a crowd.
The guests have been great.
People.
Everybody's got the right attitude. Yeah. All opinions have been aired here.
That is true.
You certainly can't say that you haven't heard all perspectives
How we roll.
On Election Day 2024. So thank you, TC. Appreciate it very much.
Question from our friend Mary Pat. Here we go.
Go ahead, Mary Pat.
Hi. Hey, Michael. And it's so good to see you, Charlie. And yes, this has been a great event. Everyone has been so awesome and kind. So my question for you, Charlie, is traditionally blue-collar workers were Democrats. And then the trend recently has been they're supporting Trump and the Republican Party. So when did this start? Why? And will it continue? Your thoughts?
Great question. I think it really began with Ronald Reagan. As I alluded to earlier, there were the so-called Reagan Democrats, which were working class Democrats, historically registered in the Democrat Party, but who began to vote Republican. They've continued to do that over the course of the past 40 years. And it really swung during the Trump presidency because blue-collar workers saw what his economic policies did for them. So both culturally and economically, there's been a gigantic shift to the Republican Party, a much more populist party than it was when we were kids. Pardon me. And I think it's going to continue. I really do. I think it's going to continue long into the future. The Republican Party is now well cemented as the party of working people.
I know that you have revered Ronald Reagan. I still revere Ronald Reagan.
Good.
Could Ronald Reagan be nominated in this party?
Yeah, he could.
No, come on.
He absolutely could. John F. Kennedy couldn't be nominated in today's Democrat Party, but Ronald Reagan would not only be nominated, he'd be worshipped.
How about, really?
Really?
But Charlie, he wasn't even referenced at the convention. Like every convention, when you and I would go to conventions together, right? Post Reagan, it was always like the mantle, the torch of Ronald Reagan. But at the Trump convention, it's like he doesn't even warrant a response.
Michael, do you see how long in the tooth we both are?
I know. It's true. It's true.
Just the passage of time. I mean, this convention, which bluntly was the best one I ever attended, it was magnificent, was totally focused on Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and our future. There wasn't much looking back to anybody.
If there were room in this party for George Herbert Walker Bush, I'd still be in it. But there's not. You agree?
Might be a little tougher for George Herbert Walker Bush.
Okay. TC, where are you?
Another one. I'm right in front.
Yeah.
Charlie, as a fellow attorney, I'm curious what both of you think. I thought 2020 was the most litigated campaign. Do you think this one's going to be better or worse, depending upon your perspective?
I sure hope not. You know, elections ought to be determined by the voters at the ballot box, not inside of courtrooms. The court challenges that have been made thus far, I think, were appropriate challenges, and as you know, most of them have been successful. They're cleaning things up, and I hope that will continue, but I hope that this doesn't come down to a 2000 situation. Counselor.
Dan, back in headquarters, can we include John in Charlotte, North Carolina, here in Doylestown? Thank you. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, how about the winner of the popular vote is awarded 10 electoral college votes for an electoral college reform?
I'm going to expand it, Charlie, and say, and thank you, John, the electoral college. What if Donald Trump wins the popular vote and loses the electoral college? Is there then going to be a serious conversation in the country about whether we need to change things?
I don't think so. I think the protections of the Electoral College have proven themselves through the years. They're very important, and I think ultimately that a constitutional change, which, as you know, Michael, would be required to get rid of the Electoral College, is not going to happen.
John, next, Dan, if you don't mind, in Dallas, Texas. Hello, John. Greetings to you. What did you most want to say?
Hey, Michael. Great show today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, curious, why don't we have this day as a national holiday? What's it going to take to make that happen?
Charlie Gerow?
I think it's a great idea. I really do. I think your caller raises a very, very significant point, and so do your viewers and listeners here. You know, a lot of countries around the world, it is a national holiday. I think it would be a great idea. So get to work on it.
Are you a fan, Charlie? John, thank you for your phone call. Are you a fan of the early voting?
I wasn't, but I'm becoming one. Okay, I still believe that there are some real issues with mail-in voting. The Carter Commission told us that, for example. But I think we're getting to the point where technology and
I had Louis DeJoy, the Postmaster General, on my CNN program 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he satisfied all of my concerns and ran through all of the data. I have to say this to you because, you know, you are the CEO of a very prominent firm in Harrisburg with a lot of influence. I wish we could get our act together here in Pennsylvania on things like pre-canvassing. the idea that your ballot and my ballot sat in a warehouse
For a long time.
For a long time and could have been processed. And tonight when we go to bed, we could know the outcome of the election, but they just can't seem to get it together.
Well, they started early this morning, Michael, and as you know, they have new mechanics to open the envelopes, et cetera, so they're hopeful and optimistic that it will go a little bit faster. But I agree with you. There's a lot of work to be done on our electoral process, and it has to be a bipartisan Michael Smerconish purple effort.
Yeah, I'm all for that, and for open primaries. Can I get you interested in that?
No.
Okay. We were doing so well. Okay.
Michael wants to nominate guys in the other party. That's great.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm tired of having.
Pick the guy who's going to lose. I'm going to support that guy because he's most likely not.
Here's what I don't want.
Candidate.
I don't want to be offered Fetterman or Oz. I'd rather have McCormick. Right?
You'd rather have Smerconish
and Lamb. Yeah, there you go. We'll end on that note. All right, nice to see you, my friend.
Great to be with you, Michael.
Stay well.
And your listeners should know that I grew up just down the road here and lived just down the street for many years.
Yeah, I remember. I remember being at your place.
Yes.
I can remember being at your place. I would name it, but I won't. When we come back, there's one more thing. My Doylestown address. Don't leave now. The Doylestown address is still ahead. You listen to it on your way back to Harrisburg, okay, Charlie? Thank you for that. Hey, when the holidays approach, I have found the perfect gift to give your loved ones to feel special. Cozy Earth. This year, I'm wrapping my family in the ultimate comfort, and here's why you should too. A peaceful night starts with the right sheets, and Cozy Earth's bamboo sheet set is the ultimate gift, offering everyday luxury that everybody's going to love. It's the gift of unparalleled comfort, making every night a serene escape. For holiday pajamas, Cozy Earth's women's bamboo pajama set and men's pajamas are must-have. They're stylish, they're super soft, they're perfect for cozy mornings or lazy evenings by the fire. What sets Cozy Earth apart? Their temperature-regulating fabrics keep you cool and cozy, and they offer a 10-year warranty so that these gifts are going to last for many holidays to come. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Head to CozyEarth.com/Michael. Use my code Michael for up to 40% off. 40% off. How amazing is that? Go to CozyEarth.com/Michael. If you get a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about Cozy Earth from me.
Clear.
This is a special edition of the Michael Smerconish Program, live from Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
Waking up to okay, gang. One last item of business, and thank you all for staying. Thank you all for being here for the duration of the program. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a big thrill for me. I'm often in here on a Saturday or Sunday morning, so it's kind of cool to come back and actually host a radio program for a national audience from the town in which I was born and raised. I told TC that I wanted to call my closing statement from Doylestown, my Doylestown address, and she said that if I do, I need to begin by saying 62 years ago. Oh, it did work. Okay. She said it would be a laugh line. I was born in this community. Mom is still here in this community. I'm invested in this community. And I think that there is a lesson in Doylestown, or at least the Doylestown of my youth, that we need to remember tomorrow or Thursday or Friday, whenever it is that we know the outcome of this election. I have been on the road delivering what I call the Mingle presentation all over the country for the last several months. I'm optimistic that by year's end, what I call the Mingle presentation will be available for everybody online. But I have been in the last 3 months in New York and North Carolina. I have been in Michigan. I have been in Texas, California, Pennsylvania, Nevada, next Thursday in Indy. And I tell stories about growing up in this town when I'm on the road. Many people tell me that they see themselves in my stories no matter where they grew up. The Doylestown that I tell them about was a wonderful place to grow up, a fun place to live. And just walking down the street today and seeing what used to be Kenny's news agency, and thinking about Joe Kenny with his ascot, for those of us who remember, or whatever they are calling Dominic's Pizzeria, pre-Nats, Dominic's, where I still remember the telephone number is 348-9656, no area code necessary, because we both ordered pizza and we made a lot of crank phone calls. The first time that I was on radio, it was from this community, WBUX, which was a 5,000-watt radio station located in Doylestown Township, broadcasting from 4 rusted transmission towers. Anybody remember Roger Conduit? Roger Conduit was like the voice of sports broadcast on WBUX, and for him to say your name was a really exciting moment. I remember in the 1970s when the kids on my block, and I grew up on Mercer Avenue in the shadow of Conti's Cross Keys Inn. Somebody? Anybody? Okay. And you're not a bunch of newbies, are you? Anybody here the old guard, as we would say? But there came that day when those of us in my neighborhood were all recruited to sing a jingle for a Sylvan Pools commercial that was then to air on WBUX. And the person who recruited us was Scott Tutt, who was the town hippie, I say that affectionately, who was the son of the town police chief, Chief Tutt. Scott Tutt owned a record store in town and also had a recording studio, and by the way, left Doylestown and became a very successful record producer for the group called Alabama. And so in Scott Tutt's studio, we recorded the jingle for Sylvan Pools that played on WBUX. And that was the first time that my voice was ever heard on any radio station. Fast forward, when I left Doylestown, I was fortunate to be heard on a 50,000-watt radio station, not 5, but 50,000, which was WWDB. Good public schools for me, Doyle Elementary, Hollycong Junior High School. Still don't understand why everything became a middle school. TC, my producer, has this podcast called Old School, TC After Dark, where we drove around the streets of Doylestown. I went back to each of the schools I attended. She recorded me, and I told stories. And we had a hell of a good time. We had a technical issue with the day we recorded it, and it was like, no sweat, we'll come back and do it again tomorrow. And we did, and I repeated all those stories. But I think about going to those schools, and a story in the Washington Post caught my eye, and this is the beginning of the Mingle presentation. And I hope you all, if you haven't seen me live, get to actually watch the tape of the full presentation, because I tell the story of how a Washington Post story caught my eye that said that more kids today are being driven to school private vehicle than public school bus. And in some districts, they're actually paying parents to drive their kids to school to save money for school districts. And it broke my heart when I read that, because I immediately said to myself, rest in peace, bus number 5. Because bus number 5 was the yellow and black that used to transport my friends and me from the Cross Keys area behind Conti's to the Doyle Elementary School. All the kids on the block, were on the bus. My buddy Dave McFarland, who back in the day had a cowlick, his hair would never sit down in the front of his head. I'm sure he's grown out of it now, but he lived straight across the street from me. I can think of everybody who lived in every house on that block. Mike Stockel Jr., who was here. We were at 24 Mercer. They were at 42 Mercer. They had the only in-ground pool in the neighborhood, and consequently we called their house Stockel Valley Country Club. His parents, wonderful people. They employed everybody on the street who wanted to one day with his hands cupped together, and he terrorized a girl named Sharon Schradel. He said, "There's a bee inside. Do you want to see it?" Lely Wodak was on that bus. He's gone. He was a wonderful guy. Lely was the one on the block who turned his backyard playhouse into a make-believe church and then wouldn't let me inside because he said I wasn't Catholic. I mean, it was fun to grow up around here. And up front was our driver, Mr. Larlick. And we didn't know much about Mr. Larlick other than the fact that he was a hard ass. And I remember the day that my parents asked my brother and me for a report on how school had been that day. And my brother very casually said to my parents, well, Chips Miller got shook up by Mr. Larlick, which means that Mr. Larlick pulled the bus over to the side of the road, got out of his seat, came to the back of the bus, which is where we all sat, grabbed Larlick, shook him up. I can remember that we sat in the back of the out the window and seeing that all the moms were at the bus stop that day, which was unusual. And before I knew what had happened, the door opened, Mr. Larlick opened the door, and Jerome de Latour's mom got on the bus, came right to the back, and she said, make room for Jerome. He wanted to sit in the back of the bus. This was a lesson in conflict resolution, and we scattered like rats. And Jerome got to sit in the back of the bus, and then the next day we all got to sit in the back of the bus. My point is that I learned a lot on that bus. Sometimes more than I learned at the Doyle Elementary School. Not about the 3 R's, right? Not about reading, writing, and arithmetic, but about social interaction and about friendship and about, from Mr. Larlick, respect. I'll tell you something else about Mr. Larlick. If you'd asked me, funny thing about childhood memories, I would have said, Mr. Larlick, I don't know, 6'4", 6'8". I recently saw his bus driver ID. He was 5'6". Viewed in a vacuum, and this is the heart of the Mingle presentation. You're getting the short version at the Bagel Barrel today on Election Day. Viewed in a vacuum, the fact that fewer kids are being driven to school today on a public school bus is meaningless. But I see it as part of a much larger and more troublesome picture, because when parents are driving their kids to school, it's one less opportunity for unstructured play. It's one less opportunity for social interaction. It's one less opportunity for personal growth. We are living, and this is the lesson for tomorrow when all of this is over. We are living in an age of conflict brought about by disconnect. Disconnect that has frayed the fabric of our nation, that has polarized our politics and harmed the mental health of our kids. But I think I know how to fix it. And the way to fix it is to do what's been done at the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown today, which is to mingle. And I use that word, and that's sort of the hallmark of the Mingle Project, with a hat tip to Bill Maher. on whose program I have appeared on several occasions. One did not go well. Please don't Google it. You'll only be adding to the count. But Bill Maher concludes each program with new rules and a commentary. And 2 years ago, he concluded his program by striking some of the same themes that I'm sharing with all of you in Doylestown today. He just delivered it more colorfully. And what Maher said was this: our real division isn't between red and blue. It's between the people on both sides who aren't willing to mingle with Americans outside their political tribe, so they have no idea what they're really like. Well, back to that bus ride on bus number 5, which seems to be in such short supply with our youth today. I've been wondering about Mr. Larlick. Who was the man who drove my school bus in Doylestown those many years ago? So I Googled his obituary and found it from the Intelligencer, of course. It wasn't long, but it was chock full of detail. I learned that my bus driver died in 1998 at the age of 85, and that he was so much more than my bus driver. It turns out that Mr. Larlick was a World War II veteran, that he served in the Navy, he served in the South Pacific, he was a sub-tender, which means that he worked in support of keeping our submarines active, and it turns out that he was an example of everything that I have discussed. He belonged to the local American Legion, which must be the Atkinson American Legion, right behind the Lutheran Church. He was a member of the Percy Owls Club. Like my parents, he was a member of the Moose Lodge. He was also a member of the Union Horse Company. I was a member of the Union Horse Company. The Union Horse Company was an excuse for guys to get together, sometimes with some inappropriate live entertainment, and play poker one day a year. He was a member of Kelly's Notre Dame Society. He was a member of the Doylestown Manor Corps Society. He was married to the same woman, Catherine, for 61 years. They are buried in this community next door to one another. They had 2 children, Linda and Edward. Edward has passed, but in preparation for the Mingle Project, I tracked down, hoping I was tracking down Linda Larlick. And it's funny because without the benefit of directory assistance, I'm a knucklehead. I was still pushing 411, hoping I could figure out her phone number. But I wasn't sure if the person I was calling was really Linda Larlick. So on a Saturday, I called this number and she picked up the phone, I think with a Chalfont address. And I said, "Is this Linda Larlick?" And she said, "It is. Who's calling?" And I said, "This is Michael Smerconish." And she said, "I just watched you on CNN." And I said, "Your father was my bus driver." And she said, "Bus number 5? And we then had this wonderful conversation about her father. And Linda Larlick told me that he was an orphan and that he had benefited from a group in Doylestown called the Boys Brigade, which is a Scottish version of the Boy Scouts that helped disadvantaged young men, founded by a man in this town named George C. Murray. Now, George Murray was an illiterate roofer who used his meager income to gain access to a defunct meeting hall in which he created a rudimentary basketball court. And by the way, right over here, the Doylestown Historical Association has all the information about Murray and what I'm now describing. I mentioned when this program began 3 hours ago that James Michener is from this town. James Michener has written that his life was saved by the stability that he found at that rudimentary basketball court created by the illiterate roofer in Doylestown to provide a way station for wayward boys. Well, so too was Mr. Larlick. Because Linda Larlick, the daughter, told me that her father didn't regularly go to church, but that he never missed an annual service offered in the name of Mr. Murray. Mr. Larlick, like my parents, growing up in this community, I remember my dad as a Rotarian, as the head of the JCs, as somebody who refereed high school and college football on Friday and Saturdays in this town every weekend in the fall. Or my mom, who was active in the VIA, the Village Improvement Association, which many of you know was a group of women that got together and raised money and built the first hospital of any substance in this town, or Eastern Star, or countless other areas where she belonged. They mingled. Mr. Larlick mingled. We have all just mingled. And what's most important come tomorrow, regardless of who wins this election, for the role quickly. Well, you no longer have to be afraid because ZipRecruiter is matching technology, finding qualified candidates fast, and right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Smerconish. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology works fast to find top talent so that you don't waste time or money. You can invite top candidates for your job to apply and encourage them to apply sooner. And when it comes to hiring fast, fear not. ZipRecruiter, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Smerconish right now. Try it for free. It's the same price as a dog in a tiny pumpkin costume or a group of cute little witches and superheroes trick-or-treating again. ZipRecruiter.com/SMERCONISH. ZipRecruiter, it really is the smartest way to hire.
Yeah.
The most important town in the most important county in the most important state of the 2024 election. You're listening to the Michael Smerconish program, live at the Bagel Barrel in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, on SiriusXM's POTUS, channel 124.
Hey, before we leave Doylestown, I want to thank our host, Patrick Murphy. Is he back there with you, TC?
Well, you know, he's very busy
bagels?
right now. He's making bagels. He's in the front. I don't know if I'm allowed to. Here he comes. I don't know if I'm allowed to walk back into the kitchen. Hi, Patrick. Say hi to Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Patrick, thank you so much for hosting us this morning. I mean, it's been a wonderful, wonderful crowd.
It's unbelievable, really.
And a good vibe, and you're a nice host, and I appreciate your business, and it's just all great. And I love your purple T-shirt as well today.
I had to make sure I had a purple shirt on for you.
Thank you, my friend. All right, so all good from your standpoint?
Everything was great from our standpoint. Everybody was great here.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. We'll come back, we hope.
Thank you, Patrick.
So, I'm totally, TC, I'm totally out of things to say.
No, that's impossible.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll tell you one more thing.
Okay, there you go.
So they said to me this morning, they said, hey, we want you to be on CNN at 7 o'clock this morning. And I said, great, but I'm going to be in Doylestown.
I'm sure they were like, perfect.
They said perfect. So PJ at Creative Outfit, who does all our video work, he was there with me. We were here nice and early this morning. I took a cup of coffee to Mom very early, and then I decided, like, where do you stand from Doylestown if you're going to do a live stand-up on CNN? and I picked the county because I thought like that iconic, gold and blue of the county theater would just be just wonderful behind. And I told this, Kate Baldwin was the host who was doing the segment. County Theater, because Rich Wiley, who was my classmate at CB West, sadly he's gone, he was the ticket taker. So, Bill, you can imagine how many of the 12 nights we actually paid for to see not too many. Yeah, zero, a goose egg. And then the story that I didn't tell on CNN, I should have, but it would have taken me too long, is that I also remember maybe it was the Bad News Bears. I don't know. But I remember being in 6th grade at Doyle Elementary during the streaking craze.
Oh, boy.
And I can remember that when the theater let out, and this was an era where we would all throw our boxes and our popcorn at the screen during a matinee at the county. It was great fun. But I remember when a movie let out and all the kids in town were there and waiting then to be picked up out front in the midst of the streaking craze. I remember that from that alley between the soap store and the county where they keep the trash bins, buck naked came one of my buddies, a few years older, and ran right in front of the crowd of mostly kids from the county theater, which was great and a big thrill, in Doylestown, except he then appears not to have decided on his escape route. So he crosses State Street and gets over to what is now Siren Records, but I think was like the Bell building at the time, passes Da Vinci's, which used to be where you get your hair cut, right? You remember that. And now comes down to Leatherman and Godshaw, which was the market. I think you own that building now. Am I right? You do. So he makes a left at Leatherman and Godshaw and sort of runs up toward what was the IVB Bank. What was it?
Yeah, it was IVB PNC.
Okay. Well, the IVB was on the other end of town. That's right. Bernie Perrant once came there. And then we never saw him again. Never saw, into the... That was you. No, it was not Bill Goldman. It was not Bill Goldman. No. It was a man who goes by the name of Benny. That's all I'm going to say. Right now, yeah. Has kept us on the air and truly, I think we go back all 3 decades that I have been on, and always with a remote, I say, please, can you get me Tommy?
Yep.
Can you get me Tommy?
We walk in and see Tommy, we know everything's going to be okay.
We do. TC, thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you.
This was a privilege.
I appreciate everybody at Creative Outfit. I appreciate Sirius XM, my big boss, Dave Gorab, for allowing me to do this. And of course, Dan back at the mothership, and Brian, the sun will come up tomorrow, okay? The sun will come up tomorrow. I'll see you then.
And I'm wondering how I'll get down the stairs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right.